Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen insults OP's career and really ends up regretting it. Am I the jerk for leaving my sister's wedding early after she called my career a hobby? So I, 26 female, just got back from my sister's wedding last weekend and I'm still pretty upset about what happened. I'm hoping y'all can give me some perspective because right now I feel like crap. Some background. My sister Anna and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's the type A, always on top of everything, super successful one, while I've been more laid back and creative. I'm an artist and I recently started my own small business selling my paintings and doing commissions. It's been slow, but it's starting to pick up and I'm really proud of it. But my family, especially Anna, has always been a bit dismissive of my career choice. They don't get why I didn't go the traditional route like she did. Anyway, fast forward to the wedding. The ceremony was beautiful and I was honestly so happy for her. I even helped out a lot with the planning, even though I wasn't the maid of honor. That was her best friend. I was doing my best to be there for her because despite everything, she's my sister and I love her. At the reception, I finally got a moment alone with Anna to congratulate her. I told her how amazing everything was, how happy I was for her, all that stuff. She just smiled and said, "Thanks. I'm surprised you actually made it. I figured you'd be too busy with your little hobby business." I was stunned. Like, did she really just call my career a hobby? I kinda laughed it off and said, "It's not a hobby, it's my job." But she just shrugged and said, "Well, it's not a real job, but I'm glad you're having fun with it." I didn't know what to say, so I just walked away. I tried to enjoy the rest of the night, but honestly, I couldn't shake what she said. It felt like she was belittling everything I've been working so hard for. So after dinner, I just decided to leave. I didn't say goodbye to her or anyone. I just grabbed my stuff and left. Now my mom is furious with me for ruining the night by leaving early, and Anna hasn't spoken to me since. My dad is trying to stay neutral, but he did say I might have overreacted. I don't know, maybe I did, but it really hurt hearing her say that, especially on her wedding day when I was just trying to support her. Am I the jerk for leaving the wedding early? I mean, unless you're borrowing money and you're in debt to all of your friends and family, then what's her problem? And OMG, why is everyone being so dramatic? You ruined the rest of the evening? It must have been a crappy wedding if you leaving ruined the evening. Not the jerk. Today I messed up by eating 2,000 calories worth of tortilla chips 2 days in a row. A year ago, I began exercising and paying attention to what I eat, mainly focusing on calorie intake. I realized I was pretty overweight during high school. With a lot of free time as a guy in my early 20s, I figured this was an important habit to form before life actually hits me, as my older coworkers have warned. Now I've reached a healthy weight range, and I'm starting to experiment with different aspects of fitness and nutrition. Last Friday, I bought a 1-pound bag of tortilla chips from my local supermarket. They were labeled house-made Hatch tortilla chips, clearly a store brand, and they were a variant called Original. What drew me to these chips were the macros. I've only recently started weighing my food, and I've learned a lot about food, caloric density, and how Western society often encourages overconsumption. I've gradually gravitated towards less calorie-dense foods. These chips were advertised as having 360 calories for 170 grams. They were large, wide chips that took a long time to chew. That's almost a 2-to-1 ratio, where most Doritos and nachos have a 4-to-1 ratio at best. I could fill a large bowl with these, and a smaller bowl could hold up to 80 grams. Plus, with decent protein and high fiber, I figured I could snack and still get some nutritional value. It seemed too good to be true. Which it was. As snacks on Friday, I ate a total of 250 grams, which was half the bag. This should have totaled up to 530 calories, on top of a chicken wrap, potato wedges, and roughly 300 grams of carrots. That night, my stomach felt terrible, but I chalked it up to the amount of fiber that I consumed, around 60 grams. The next day, I didn't feel particularly hungry until after my walk. I ate a banana and then I finished off that bag of chips. The bag should have weighed about 400 grams in total, and I ate about 150 grams, which should have been under 350 calories. Later, I went for a ride with my father after the gym. Despite having only consumed 460 calories up to that point, along with lifting weights and doing 400 calories worth of cardio, I didn't feel tired or depleted. My father noticed the chips and wanted to try some. He insisted I buy 2 more bags, and when I told him the first pack was gone, he suggested I get 3. I did that, and I still didn't feel that hungry until a bit later, so I ate more carrots and then more chips. In truth, I only assumed I ate about a bag and a half that day, maybe more, so roughly 700 grams in total. That's 1,500 calories of chips. Pretty insane, but hey, I tracked it all, and I was still in a caloric deficit. I only ate small amounts of fruits and veggies that day aside from the chips. Worst case scenario, I worked out that day, and one bad day wasn't going to ruin me. After all, they had fiber and protein, so that's good for you, right? Then I posted about these chips on a subreddit and got all sorts of flack. You sweet summer child. Dude, come on, with no elaboration. Eventually, a kind user mentioned that they couldn't find any information about these tortilla chips online, which prompted me to search, and I had the same realization. Another user pointed out that I should check the fat and protein and carb ratio. I did the math already. The label describes a serving of 85 grams of chips, not 170, as 360 calories. The label was off by 100%. My stomach was screaming at me the whole time about this, but I assumed it was the fiber or the fact that I ate a ton of chips, even if they were good chips. I trusted the government label more than my own body. Heck, the government probably doesn't even know about these chips. Like I said, I can't find anything about them online. They don't exist in any calorie tracking app, and last I checked, not even the store's website lists these. In reality, I didn't eat 530 calories of tortilla chips on Friday. I ate 1,000 calories of tortilla chips on Friday and 3,000 calories of chips on Saturday because of an inaccurate label. You didn't feel a little weird after eating a pound of chips? You didn't think, hey, maybe I shouldn't eat another bag the next day? The only tragedy here is that you didn't mention any beans and salsa. It sounds like a party to me. My best friend did something horrible at a mutual family friend's wedding and blamed it on my sister. This story involves me, 24 female, my best friend Caroline, 23 female, and my younger sister Nicole, who's 19, and our mutual friend, the groomsman, Daniel, who's 28. So over the weekend, a very good family friend of both my family and Caroline's family was getting married. Caroline and I have been best friends for years. We met when we were toddlers. Our moms are best friends, our sisters are friends, etc. You get the picture. We knew that both of our families would be invited to this wedding, and we were looking forward to it for months. It's important to note that Caroline's family and my family have a ton of mutual friends, and this was going to be a very large wedding. The guest count was in the 500s. Everything was going fine until Caroline gets completely drunk. She kept talking to me about how hot one of the groomsmen was, Daniel, and how she had had a crush on him for years, but he showed no interest. This was probably because he was in a serious relationship and had been dating his current girlfriend for about 6 years. The girlfriend decided not to attend this wedding because she didn't know the bride and groom very well, and since Daniel would be a groomsman, she wouldn't see him much either. Fast forward a couple of hours, and Caroline is hanging all over Daniel. She's constantly asking him to dance with her, get her drinks from the open bar, etc. She was blatantly throwing herself at him, and it was embarrassing and painful to watch. I tried intervening a couple of times to get her off of him, but she snapped at me, and at that point, I decided it wasn't my problem. Furthermore, Daniel wasn't completely pushing her away. He looked like he had a few drinks in him as well and seemed somewhat interested in Caroline. I decided that if he didn't care, I certainly wasn't going to. If he wanted to throw his relationship away, it was none of my concern. I had tried. I didn't witness this next part, but by the end of the night, the two of them were off hooking up somewhere. Unfortunately for them, someone, I'm not sure who, just that it was someone's mom who knew Daniel and his girlfriend but didn't know Caroline, caught them, and for some reason, Caroline told this woman that she was Nicole, my sister. I don't know if she was embarrassed or what, but she purposely identified herself as Nicole so that Caroline wouldn't be in trouble. Word quickly spread about what happened, and Nicole was mortified. People were talking about how disrespectful, home-wrecking, rude, and crappy Nicole was. I honestly can't even blame them. Had I not known better, I would be thinking the same things. On top of that, Caroline had gone around actually telling other people that it was Nicole and confirming the rumors she started. The bride and groom were upset, everyone was talking badly about my sister, and Caroline seemed not to care. In fact, when I confronted her about the situation at the wedding, she straight up denied it. Had Daniel not confirmed it was true, I might have even believed her. The next day, Caroline texted Nicole a half-hearted apology about the whole thing, saying she was drunk and made a mistake. The text included a lot of lols and ha-has, so I'm not sure how seriously Caroline is taking the situation. She doesn't even seem to realize how mortified Nicole is. Nicole genuinely thinks her life is ruined now. We live in a very tight-knit community, and a lot of people have heard the false version of what went down. I'm at odds with what to do now. Up until this point, Caroline had been a very good friend to both me and Nicole. I'm just not sure if I can forgive her for this. especially considering her lack of awareness about how bad the situation really is. Should I dump her, or should I give her another chance? Our friendship will be different regardless. My family sees Caroline in a completely different light now, so even if I forgave her, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the same things we used to, like hang out at my house or do things with my family, etc. What should I do? Another issue is that Nicole is absolutely terrified of the potential ramifications from Daniel's current girlfriend. I have absolutely no updates on the situation with the girlfriend. I don't know her well, and I don't know what Daniel has chosen to share with her, if anything at all. And because a lot of people are asking me how I could even consider remaining friends with Caroline, prior to this experience, she was honestly a great best friend. Of course, we've had our ups and downs like all friends do, but she has always been a kind and caring person, and I really valued our friendship. I've known her my whole life, and the evening at the wedding was very uncharacteristic of her, including her coming on to a man who was in a relationship. Throwing away a relationship with someone you've been close with for over 15 years is extremely difficult. However, I am prepared to do this if it's the right thing to do. If Caroline wants to continue your friendship, she needs to make this right and tell everyone that she lied. If she doesn't, then I would personally cut ties. Her being drunk was no excuse for what she did. I think Nicole needs to stand up for herself as well. She should be very clear with people that she would never do something like that. Tell her not to let someone else ruin her reputation. If Caroline won't set the record straight, Nicole, you, and your family can. OP. I haven't actually considered asking Caroline to go public and own up to the situation. I think I'll do this. I actually have no idea how she'll react. Caroline is usually a decently moral person, but she also hates confrontation, so I wonder how she'll take it. My family and I have been trying to set the record straight, but it's really hard to undo a rumor that has spread to so many people, mostly because nobody actually wants to talk about it to us directly. Most of the talk goes on behind our backs, but of course, we know it's happening. Update. So about a week and a half ago, Caroline called me and asked to sleep over. She wanted to attend an event downtown, and my place was much closer to the event than hers. At this point, it became very clear that Caroline had no idea anybody was upset with her, despite the fact that Nicole and I hadn't spoken with her since the wedding. I told Caroline that I didn't think her staying over was a good idea, and when she asked why, I brought up what happened at the wedding. She laughed and said Nicole needs to grow up and get over it, and it really seemed like she expected me to agree and laugh along with her. Well, I took your advice and I let her have it. I told her how selfish and inconsiderate she was, and if it truly was no big deal, then she should have no problem taking full responsibility for her actions and publicly acknowledging that she was the one who hooked up with Daniel and not Nicole. I told her she needed to make things right because Nicole was still mortified over something she didn't do. At the end of the phone call, I gave her an ultimatum. Post an apology to Facebook and spill the beans about what actually happened, or our friendship was over. To my complete and utter surprise, she did it. I thought it would make me feel better, but people were actually commenting on her Facebook status, commending her bravery, and the fact that she did the right thing. I was super annoyed because, of course, she would never have done this had I not forced her to. But at the end of the day, Nicole is happy and her name is now in the clear. Oh, and an update on Daniel and his girlfriend. According to his Instagram, they're happily together. Whether or not she knows about Caroline, I don't know, and I don't care. Not my train wreck. It's always amazing how so many people are okay with cheating and cheaters. It says a lot about OP that she's willing to continue being a friend with someone who A, cheated, and B, threw their family member under the bus. I certainly couldn't do that, and it amazes me that so many people would. I see it all over the place, including this subreddit. Would I be the jerk if I asked someone I thought was my friend why only my boyfriend was invited to their wedding? For context, I, 23 female, have known this guy, 24, I'll call him Roger, for 6 years now. He and I were put into a musical ensemble together during our first year of college, and we stayed in it for 4 years. This group is also where I met my boyfriend, who's 24, and where my boyfriend met Roger as well. There were a couple of other guys in the group, and we all were and have remained pretty good friends, especially since the other 4, including my boyfriend, are in a band together that they continued after college. I wasn't excluded from this group, I just really wasn't interested in the time commitment, so I declined to join when they started out. They've actually become pretty well known in our local scene. They're a really talented group. Roger has been with his fiancée, who's 22, since before I met him, and when she came to the same school we were in, all the rest of us in the group became pretty friendly with her. I wouldn't really consider her a friend. We have no beef as far as I'm aware. We just aren't really close and only really talk at shows. I do like her though, and we always make a point of saying hi to each other when we see each other and we have a friendly chat. So my boyfriend and I have known these guys for literally the same amount of time. We spent all our college with Roger, seeing each other at least twice a week for this group, although it was usually much more. We still hang out with them sometimes outside of the band scene. Roger is getting married to his fiancée this summer. Of course, I wished them both congratulations when I heard the news of their engagement. A couple of months ago, we got the save the date in the mail. It was addressed to only my boyfriend, which I thought was a bit odd, but it was only the save the date, so I didn't really think much to it. I put it on the fridge. Well, last week, the wedding invite came. It was again addressed to just my boyfriend. We opened it and there was no indication of even a +1 or anything. I really don't think I should be a +1 for my boyfriend. I feel like I should be invited on my own merit. My boyfriend said that maybe they just addressed it to him because we live together, but that's exactly my point. We live together, so if it's for both of us, it should be addressed to both of us. Otherwise, I assume mail addressed to him is his. I'm honestly incredibly hurt by this. I guess it's fine if they don't really see us as friends, but I still feel like the fact that they know my boyfriend and I live here and know I'm expecting to be invited since everyone else from the old group is, it makes this feel like a real punch in the gut. So, I guess my question is twofold. Am I the jerk for being offended by this in the first place? And would I be the jerk if I asked them why I wasn't invited? Update. The wedding is this weekend. For some reason, my fiancé keeps asking me if I'm going. Apparently, he asked the groom and he was told verbally that I am invited, but given the fact that my name was not on the invitation, nor was it on the save the date we received earlier, I really just can't go off of that as enough evidence that I'm welcome there. I really believe that if I was invited, after my fiancé asked why my name wasn't on the invitation, one of them should have reached out directly to me if they actually are expecting me to show up. But they haven't, and for some reason, my fiancé believes they're expecting me to be there. He keeps saying he doesn't want to have to explain to people why I'm not there. I keep telling him that there isn't anything to explain. I wasn't invited. But here's where I'm conflicted. I truly do not want to start drama surrounding their wedding. I respect their decision not to invite me if that's how they want their day to be. I don't think anyone should ever have to invite someone to their wedding that they don't want to, but I'm also fully aware that there are going to be several people there who are close to my fiancé and me as a couple who are going to wonder why I'm not there. It may cause a fuss if anyone asks the bride and groom directly, which I realize may come off as main character syndrome. I don't really think people will be that concerned about where I am, but my fiancé and I go everywhere together, so my absence will definitely be noticed by our friends, and some of them aren't good at knowing when to just let things go. So I genuinely have no idea what to do here. Here are the options I can see right now. I can take my fiancé's word for it that they do want me there, despite everything saying the opposite, and just show up, risking being unwelcome and possibly upsetting them on their wedding. 2. Not go. Come up with a fake story for my fiancé to tell everyone so nobody will try to go poking for gossip. 3. Don't go. Tell my fiancé to either just state the truth, that I wasn't invited, or he can come up with a story on his own if he's not comfortable with that. I'm leaning towards option 3, which honestly does feel kind of petty. My reasoning is that if they don't want people to ask why I'm not there, they should have invited me to be there. This definitely is a bit petty, but I just don't see why I should lie for them when they don't even respect me as my fiancé's long-term partner, who they have spent many years getting to know, let alone as a friend to them. What do you guys think? Is there another option here where I don't feel like I'm being a doormat while also avoiding coming across as a jerk? Or is this one of those situations where I can really only have the high ground if I cover for them because it's their wedding day? Any thoughts and advice are welcome, please and thank you. Also, I talked to a friend of mine about this who vaguely knows who the couple is because I wanted to ask someone who wouldn't bring it up to them if I was overreacting. She ended up telling me last month that she found out a different friend of hers who was really good friends with the bride all through school and thought they were still friends was also not invited. I don't know if that makes much of a difference in the overall take of the situation, but it does seem relevant. Update. So I'm glad that I didn't go. My fiancé was quite unhappy when he came home from the wedding and told me I was onto something. It turns out I was not the only partner that was missing, but my fiancé is still a bit confused by the whole thing because it struck him as really weird who didn't have their partners there. Plenty of people did ask about me and where I was. My fiancé just kind of generically told them I couldn't make it. But the bride and groom did not ask about me, though the groom came up to my fiancé and said something about, "Can't wait for your wedding," which is what made him realize I was right about the whole thing. None of the bridal party, many of whom we know well, asked about me, which also stood out to him considering how many of the guests did. One thing that strikes me as odd is that my fiancé confirmed there was no designated seat for me, but there were a lot of empty seats. This leads me to wonder if they knew how entirely confusing and weird that was and were preparing for people's spouses that weren't invited to show up and play it off by having a seat available. I don't know. The whole thing just feels weird to me and confusing, but I do at least think it's pretty clear that I was right and I made the right decision to not go. My fiancé is pretty disappointed too to find out how little these friends respect not just me as a person, but me as his partner. But that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. I just wish they had been direct, even if the reason they gave was a lie that I wasn't invited. I would have understood if they said it was a matter of numbers, but the way they went about this just seems so pathetic and cowardly to me. But it appears we weren't the only long-term couple they did this to. So I think it says a lot more about them than it does about me. My bet is that a bunch of people RSVP'd no when their partner wasn't invited. That's what I would have done. I'm really surprised OP's partner went, but since he was there, he shouldn't have let the groom get away with the "looking forward to your wedding" comment. That groom is all levels of rude. If you get invited to a wedding with no +1 and you have a live-in fiancé, I think it's reasonable to ask if and why they aren't invited. No one is owed a wedding invitation, but at a celebration of your relationship, I feel it's a direct act of disrespect to ignore another person's relationship. I hate that this doesn't have the proper closure. Was it a jealousy thing or what? She did good in not going. Sounds like it would have caused an issue if she did. The bride is 22. Guarantee it's a combo of jealousy and controlling behavior. Roger was probably never allowed female friends, so why would any be invited to the wedding? Am I the jerk for blowing up at my mom after she said I was being lazy and should have a job by now? I'm 27, male. Around a month and a half ago, our department cut its funding and I got laid off. No promises of returning either. I'm a case manager. Honestly, after 3 years of it, I'm not ready to return either. I only got paid $18 an hour and was stressed out almost every day with a big caseload of clients. Since being laid off, I've probably applied to 30 different places. I lost count. My mother is helping me as well. I've had no follow-up phone calls and can't believe it's this hard. 8 years ago, you could just walk in somewhere, hand in a resume, and get an interview the same day. Now everything is online. The only place that called me back was an entry-level stocking position, and they called and told me that they had other, more qualified candidates. Here's where my mother comes into play. She sensed me getting frustrated about the job search and will send me links to places hiring in the area. The problem is, my mother is very old-fashioned. She's in her 60s and just thinks that I'll get hired anywhere because I have a bachelor's degree. Just yesterday, she sent me a supervisor position at a factory and said, "You have a bachelor's degree. You'll be at the top of the list of candidates." Like, Mom, another one just told me that they had more qualified people to stock the shelves. She gets upset when I say that I'm not even going to apply because I'm wasting my time. She feels that I'm being lazy. We got into it, and I thanked her for the help, but I told her that times are changing, and it's just not easy to get a decent job anymore. I can appreciate my mother's help, but I don't like being put down for being lazy when it doesn't make sense to even waste my time. Did she say that you're being lazy, or was that just your interpretation? If you're living in her home, then you're going to be subject to both help and advice. Deal with it. If you're living in your own place and relying on savings or unemployment, then she's probably worried about how long that might last before you ask for her help. No jerks here. You're frustrated and she's concerned. Both of you need to interact less, or differently, on the job topic. Not the jerk. I understand your frustration. Everyone these days has a bachelor's degree. Work experience counts for far more in this day and age. That being said, it wouldn't hurt to apply. I know it's disheartening to get yet another rejection, but every once in a while, one of these long shots may actually pay off. I don't know. But just so you know, when applying for jobs, you need to treat that as if it's your job. So spend hours every single day applying. You should apply to like 5 minimum a day. Honestly, probably more for a minimum even. 15 applications for a month and a half is nothing. It sucks, I get it. I have a master's degree, and I've applied to probably 40 places in the last week and have yet to hear back. It's so competitive out there. Everyone's needing to get paid, and as you said, it's just a big impersonal pool of resumes coming in. Anyways, good luck. Keep trying and be patient. Judging from the comments, you're the jerk for editing your post to say you applied to 30 places instead of 15. Also, I'm a bit perplexed at your claim that 8 years ago, walking in off the street with a resume in hand was enough for a job. You sure you don't mean 80 years ago? Like, applications have been online only for a lot more than 8 years. 10 and 15 years ago, we were making fun of our parents for telling us to walk down the street with a paper resume in hand.
Karen stole my cookbook, so now I'm suing her. My family is originally from a country with a very distinct style of cooking that is hard to replicate in the States. Growing up, my mom always did the cooking for big family events and at home for the immediate family, so her cooking was a huge part of my childhood. For one of my birthdays, I asked her for a cookbook of as many of the recipes as she could remember. So I have this handwritten journal full of my favorite childhood recipes. This cookbook has a lot of sentimental value to me, especially since my mother passed away shortly after. My cousin has been pestering me about borrowing the cookbook for years. She claims it's fair because my mother's cooking was just as much a part of her childhood as mine. She feels this way because her own mother was neglectful and her dad was absent, so my mom was often a mother figure to her, and in all honesty, her only parent-like figure. She spent some time living with us, and she sometimes called my mom, Mom. I've offered to let her take pictures or scan it. She says it would take too long and wouldn't mean as much as the real thing. The reason I'm against her just taking it is because my cousin is a messy and clumsy person, especially in the kitchen. I've never seen her cook a meal without causing some huge mess or spill. This scares me because the cookbook is not laminated or protected in any way. It's just paper and pencil. I had the family over for Thanksgiving and realized the morning after that my cookbook was gone. I immediately sent my cousin multiple texts because I knew it was her, but didn't get an answer. So today, I went over in person. She answers the door and immediately starts crying and justifying herself. She spilled tomato sauce all over the book and then soaked it, trying to clean it up in tomato sauce. Most of the pages are pretty much destroyed and illegible. Nobody else in the family knows all those recipes. I feel like I've lost a part of my mother and a part of my childhood. I plan to pursue legal action. The family has caught wind of this, and I've received a flurry of messages calling me the jerk and various other names, saying how I'm ruining the family over a book and a mistake, etc. I really empathize with her grief over my mom, and I know they had a close relationship. I also understand that she didn't spill on the book intentionally and that she feels bad about it. I don't think that justifies her stealing and ruining something with that level of sentimental value to me, especially after I said no, gave reasoning for the no, and offered alternatives. So Reddit, would I be the jerk if I sue? I'm saying not the jerk, because your cousin clearly shouldn't have stolen the cookbook and ruined it, but I don't understand what you would get out of a lawsuit. You're the jerk. You're seriously going to sue your cousin over a cookbook? Chances are you have tons of things that belong to your mom. There's no need to be stingy with a cookbook, and if you had just been kind and given it to her, then you wouldn't even be in this situation. Well, what do you think? Should OP sue her cousin or not? Please let us know. I'd do a lot more than just sue, to be honest. I told a customer her daughter bullied me back in high school. So I work at a department store in a mall near where I grew up. I was bullied in high school. I don't think about it a lot, but sometimes people from high school come through my store. I just do my job and I'm pleasant to them because I need the money. Anyway, a woman came through to pick up an order and she gave me the last name and spelled it. I thought, hey, that's Kristen and Katie's last name from high school. It was a pretty unique name. I didn't say anything at first, just normal pleasant chatter. She took the stuff out of the bag to make sure it was right and commented, "My daughters will love these. They just finished college, etc." She essentially confirmed whose mom she was. I was just making small talk and said, "Oh, I think I went to school with a Kristen and Katie last name." She said, "Oh yeah? How funny. Were you friends?" I said, "Oh no, I just knew they were in my grade." She said, "Were you on the volleyball team with them?" I said, "No, I don't think so." She looked at my name tag and said, "That's odd. I think I remember them talking about a penny back then. You must have come over for their birthday or something." That just kind of made me sad because I've never been to a birthday party before. And I said, "No, I definitely never came over. Kristen bullied me, and I don't think I ever talked to Katie." Her entire demeanor changed, which was okay, honestly. I had people in line. She didn't say a single thing after that and just kind of left without taking her order sheet. I didn't chase her down to get it to her. She'll have a copy in her email anyway. The next customer in line said something like, "Whew, that was awkward." And my coworker at the counter agreed. They both laughed about it, but later on my coworker said it was pretty rude of me to tell the woman that her kid was a bully. She has a daughter. I don't have kids. I have a betta fish named Carl. On the one hand, yeah, I guess, it was like 4 years ago, but at the same time, it happened, and I think a parent would want to know that their kid was a jerk to others so they could talk to them about it, even as adults. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. You brought the connection up. What did you think was going to happen? She didn't know who you were. Her daughters probably never mentioned you. She was trying to be polite to someone who seemed to know her family. This entire interaction wouldn't have happened if you hadn't forced it. What? Did you think you would tell their mother how awful her daughter was, and she would tearfully beg your forgiveness and call your ex-bully on the phone in front of you and disown her for her crimes? You put this woman who just wanted to do her shopping in peace in an uncomfortable position for no reason. It seems I'm going against the grain here, but you're the jerk. Obviously, the daughters are jerks for the bullying, but they're not part of this story. This is an interaction between you, who works in customer service, and their mother, a paying customer who didn't bully you in high school. As part of your job, you usually have to make small talk as you complete the sale, but you recognized her. She didn't recognize you. You were the one to bring up knowing her daughters, and being asked how you know them was bound to be the next question. You may have answered honestly, but there was always the option you didn't take. Say nothing in the first place. Take her money, let her leave with her shopping, and forget about it. Instead, you went with the nuclear option. I noticed in another comment, someone said you were unprofessional. This is what they mean. For minimum wage in retail, professional means you say, "Have a nice day," and then shut up. You've probably embarrassed a customer into not coming back, and you're lucky your management didn't overhear the conversation. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for what she said or not? Please let us know. I'd be proud if I found out my kids were bullies. Am I the jerk for quitting my job after a 16-hour shift? I, 19 male, work at a gas station for the past 7.5 months. I had just put in my 2 weeks notice last week. I worked an 8-hour shift. I finished all of my paperwork and waited on my coworker. We'll call him A, who is supposed to work overnight. 5 minutes pass and I call A, but he doesn't answer. I try to call both managers, S and R we'll call them, but neither of them answered. It's now 12 a.m. I could just walk out, let them deal with this, but as the only person who was on the shift, I decided I couldn't leave the store, so I stayed all night long. This is when I was honestly considering quitting on the spot. I had already put in my 2 weeks notice. Plus, I live in an employment at will state. So 5:30 a.m. rolls around, my manager doesn't clock in till 6 a.m., but upon seeing my car, came in and asked me why I was still here. I tell him A never showed up to work, so I stayed. I showed him my call log of me calling him and S multiple times throughout the night, as well as A. He told me that he drove his fiancée to work last night at 10 p.m. and must have passed right out last night. He said I should have texted him because he was up at 4 a.m. and, in his words, "If I had seen your message, I would have hopped in the shower and gotten here." While it's a nice sentiment, that meant that R was up at 4 a.m., and I don't know anyone who doesn't check their phone in the morning or use their phone as an alarm anymore. There's no way he wouldn't have seen all the missed calls from last night. I brush it off, do my paperwork for the night, again, and ask him if they're going to make me work my shift today because I was scheduled for another 8-hour shift. He calls S, who answered immediately. She said her ringer was off last night. S tells me that I would possibly have to work my shift if they couldn't get a hold of A. I was too exhausted to really plead my case, and I was on the verge of crying because I was hurting so bad at this point and starting to feel sick. R told me he had messaged me about whether or not I work tonight. I said okay and went home. I told my parents all about the issue, and they said it was a little suspicious. How I couldn't get a hold of anyone. S has never missed any of my calls ever, but she answered Paul's call immediately when her ringer is off? It feels suspicious. A jab because I had put in my 2 weeks notice. My dad told me I need to quit immediately. Mom even asked if anyone apologized or thanked me, and they didn't. R sent me a message that said I needed to come in at 5 p.m. and work a 6-hour shift. I just worked a 16-hour shift, and you want me to work 6 more hours? That's 22 hours in a short amount of time. He told me a 4-hour shift, not 6. I told him I wasn't coming in and I've decided to quit on the spot. A part of me truly feels guilty about it because I've always worked through my 2 weeks notice and it just feels wrong. So, am I the jerk in this situation? Not the jerk. They're managers. They get paid more for dealing with emergencies like A's no-show. If they think working 22 hours within a 36-hour period is doable, I guess that's a lucky thing for them, as they're about to find out how it feels. Not the jerk. One of my first jobs was at a daycare where I watched the kids from 4:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. when we closed. After about 8 or 9, when the last infant went home, I was usually alone. Now in our state, legally, no one is supposed to be alone in a daycare, but the two managers claimed it was okay because they each lived less than 5 minutes away. So one Friday, the empty house back behind the daycare caught fire. It was kind of wooded, and I was the first to call 911. I tried calling the managers then, to no answer. After the firemen checked out the building, they suggested we needed to evacuate. 2 parents had showed up and mercifully stayed with me while I was frantically trying to call the managers. For 2 hours, while I tried to keep the kids calm and contact all the parents, I think I had about 5 kids left. Those 2 never called back. I got all the kids to their parents and I locked the place up. I get called at 4:30 a.m. because they had both been out drinking and went to a concert and didn't see all the messages. When I went into my next shift, it was to hand in my resignation. It was the first time I quit a job and I was so stressed I had hives. They were so nasty, claiming I should have tried harder to get a hold of them. I was in tears and left without going back. But I did send a nice letter to the state board with my story of all the times they left me alone, including emails I had sent expressing my concern over exactly this situation. There was even a letter where I asked what would happen if I slipped mopping and hit my head, asking which of the kids I should train to call them for backup in case I was unconscious. I also had letters from other employees and parents and a contact number for the fire chief, who were all concerned that I was left alone. They got shut down 2 months later. Oh! She don't know nothing. Waited for 2 hours to get called at the DMV. Went through the 30-minute paperwork process, finally got outside, and 2 ladies started yelling from their car. Lady 1, lady, talking to me. Can you get state IDs in there? Lady 2, talking over Lady 1. Do you work here? Do you work here? OP shakes head and shrugs shoulders. No, I don't work here. I believe so, but I don't know. Lady 1. But can I get my ID? OP. I believe so, but I don't know. There's a guy that stands out here to check you in. He's helping someone. Lady 1. Can you go get him? Just go in there and get him. I'm gonna go in there and get him. Me. I can't go back in. I don't work here. Lady 1 and 2. You don't work here? You don't know nothing. Why are you even out here? You don't work here. All I did was walk out of the exit door. I walked away and listened to the constant insults because I don't work there. Edit. Y'all got me giggling over here. Also, I forgot a fun bit of the story until just now. The DMV guy ended up coming back outside about 5 minutes after the verbal lashing I received as I texted my husband the saga. They called him over to their car just as they had tried to do to me. Lady 1. Can I get an ID here? Lady 2, bringing out Lady 1's walker. DMV guy. Yes, you can get your ID here, but we aren't taking any more walk-ins for the day. You'll need to make an appointment. Cue hysterics from both women. Some names and other powwow amongst both of the ladies. Lady 1, the driver. Man, I really need to get my ID. I just need a state ID. I can't see, and I'm having a hard time walking. I just moved here, but I need to get my ID. I just need to get my ID. Can't I just get in to get it? Guy. I understand. We just cannot take anyone else this morning without having an appointment. You'll have to come back after you make an appointment. Well, fine then. Can I make an appointment? I didn't hear his response, but he finished the conversation and promptly returned to the front door where I heard him get cussed out by 3 more people because they needed an appointment, and they felt they should get to go in right that second. I just want to know, how is she driving if she doesn't need a driver's license and just wants a state ID? Also, why is she driving if she can't see? She and her friend ended up yelling over to me again a few minutes after that. They called, "Lady," about 30 times while I ignored them. Another guy finally came out of the building behind me and they asked him their question. There's no way I was about to talk to them again, not even to answer them with how to get out of the parking lot. Am I the jerk for leaving early from Thanksgiving with my in-laws because I did not want to watch the movie Love Actually? There's a tradition at my in-laws that we all sit down and watch a Christmas movie after lunch is over, and we bring out the tree and everything. It's usually a lot of fun, and after the movie, people leave or sleep over or whatever. I'll say that historically, my sister-in-law is really big on tradition and makes a big deal about if things are different or if people try to back out. There's a reason for it, but it's irrelevant in my opinion. Well, some context is that I found out my husband had been cheating on me earlier in the year. We're in therapy and working through a lot of stuff. We're staying together. It doesn't mean I'm healed. I still have a lot to go, but I'm working on it. The movie that my sister-in-law picked this year was Love Actually, which is a family favorite. I asked if we could maybe watch something else because we've watched it a few times. It was shot down, which is totally fine. I don't get to ruin everyone else's time. I pulled my husband aside and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to take off. Do you mind?" He asked me to just stay and that maybe I can go to the bathroom or something during those scenes. But I said no, I'm not going to feel comfortable. He accepted it and said that he wanted to stay to spend time with his family. When I got back inside, I said that I wasn't feeling great and was going to head back home and come pick up my husband tomorrow morning. Everyone kept asking me to stay, and my sister-in-law was like, "Is it because we won't watch a different movie?" I said no, I just wasn't feeling great, and got my things and left. When I got home, I polished off a bottle of wine and watched Gossip Girl for a few hours and just calmed down and relaxed. Sister-in-law texted me if everything was okay. I said yeah, feeling a bit better, and she wrote this whole thing about how she gets that it's boring to watch the same movies over and over again, but that my husband was obviously upset that I just left him there and how it was awkward and uncomfortable that I just abandoned him. I just responded, "I'll keep that in mind." And she kept going on with, "Are you going to pull the same thing if we watch Rudolph with the kids on Christmas?" I didn't respond to her, and now I feel like maybe I didn't handle this well. I thought that if I stayed there, even if I left the room during those scenes, I'd know they were coming and fixate on it. Like I said, we're working on it, but the triggers are still triggers, and I didn't want to make a spectacle of myself. Am I the jerk? Should I have just sucked it up and removed myself for the sake of family tradition? Sorry, I should have said, no, his family does not know. Forgot to include that. Thanks. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the comments. I just wanted to address something that keeps coming up so people don't have to keep commenting about it. We don't want his family or my family or anyone to know. It's not because of shame, embarrassment, etc. It's because we like to keep our private lives private. No, he didn't twist my arm into this. I also prefer to keep our lives private. We won't be telling anyone who doesn't need to know. Therapists involved, for example. You should have told them. I'm so sorry. Cheating is devastating and I admire your commitment to making the marriage work. But you need to really take a step back and understand something. Your husband asked you to maintain a high level of discomfort and pain, all in an attempt to shield himself from the consequences of his own behavior. His sister-in-law is pushy, yes, so is mine. But she didn't do it maliciously because you have protected the very person who hurt and betrayed you. That is, of course, a decision made by the both of you. But in my opinion, that means hubby should be even more aware of your comfort and boundaries and be actively working toward respecting them. He didn't, and now you are paying the price. Again, you are not the jerk. The only reason I don't say not the jerk is because your hubby is. He should have put his foot down on a movie change, not asked you to take another cut to the heart for him. Good luck and happy holidays. Edit. For those who insist I am the worst and stop reading after the first sentence, what I should have said was, I would have told them. If all you want to comment is how atrocious I must be for saying you should have told them, never fear, other people already have you covered. Thanks. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for leaving and not watching the movie or not? Please let us know. You couldn't even pay me to watch a Christmas movie called Love Actually. Am I the jerk for quitting my job to be a house husband and going to court to get 50-50 visitation and remove child support? Me, 36 male, and my ex-wife, 35 female, have 2 kids who are 7 and 6. We've been divorced for 3 years now, and we are both happily remarried. We were bad spouses, but are now decent friends and both good parents. My ex-wife has primary custody, but currently I get them every other weekend and 2 to 3 evenings a week. It also helps that my wife, 38 female, and I live just a few miles away in the next town. Since the divorce, my ex-wife has been a stay-at-home mom, and her husband, 36 male, has a good job making $120,000 a year. I have a good job and make $150,000 a year, but my wife has always been the breadwinner and recently received a sizable promotion, raise up to $280,000 a year. I've always wanted to go back to school, but with my work schedule, I was never able to do it. My wife and I have been talking, and she thinks I should quit my job, go back to school, and be a house husband. She already made the joke about getting me a French maid outfit. Ha ha ha. Seriously though, this would allow us to spend more time with my kids too. We've been going over this for a few weeks, talking through how it would reduce our income, retirement savings, how it would affect our marriage, etc. We also talked about how we could logistically do it with the kids too. Luckily, since we live close to my kids' school, it should be easy for me to do school drop-offs and pickups, so I could do a 50-50 arrangement. Here's my concern. Since my ex-wife was a stay-at-home mom and I kept working, I've been paying her $2,000 a month. If I quit my job and went 50-50 on custody, I think it would be fair to go back to court to get child support reduced to zero, since neither of us would be working and we would be 50-50. I talked to my ex-wife about this, and at first she was on board until I brought up child support. She blew up calling me selfish for only thinking about myself, and that since I have a good job, I need to keep it. I didn't want to get into a fight with her, so I hung up, but now I'm second-guessing everything. Am I the jerk for wanting to quit my job to be a house husband and go to court to get 50-50 visitation and remove child support? Edit 1. My ex-wife and I split all kid-related expenses, and I have covered their health insurance since birth. I offer to continue paying for their coverage. Well, it would be on my wife's plan, but still. Edit 2. As mentioned above, we live just a few miles away from my ex-wife and her husband. Nothing would change for the kids' education, sports, friends, favorite donut shop, etc. Edit 3. My ex-wife was a successful real estate agent making $100,000 a year. She chose to be a stay-at-home mom after she got remarried. Edit 4. I will of course consult with an attorney before taking any actions. Edit 5. I feel it is important to add this note about how we arrived at $2,000 a month of child support. When we got divorced, I was earning $140K a year, and my wife was earning $100K a year. She didn't want to live in the house, so we refinanced her out of the house and she was paid out. The California Child Support and Spousal Support Calculator gave me a guideline of $1,350 per month for child support and $100 a month for spousal support. When we went through mediation, she requested $2,000 since she was going to have the expense of a new 3-bedroom house. I agreed to the increased amount of money. Even after she was married and my ex-wife and her husband bought their house, I never went back to lower the monthly payments. Reply. If in America, depending on the state, talk to a lawyer. You can't quit your job without cause if you're the provider. There are laws that prevent people from doing this. Reply. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but is child support not in part about keeping kids' quality of life stable between two households? If your combined household makes doable hers still, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if you were still on the hook for child support. I'm also going to point out that if you're quitting your job to go back to school, the judge will likely be inquiring about why you think school will take you less time than a job, enough to be able to handle 50-50 custody when you didn't want it when you had a job, and what you plan to do when you finish school. The "I don't know" that you're giving us here won't fly. Nobody is going to alter a custody agreement that's working to 50-50 knowing that you're not sure you plan to keep 50-50 custody indefinitely, that you're legitimately going to put renegotiation back on the table in 3 years. Your kids need stability, and spending 3-ish years with 50-50 and then you going back to being a weekend visit after is less ideal than staying a weekend visit the whole time. Am I the jerk for calling my brother's wife a neglectful, financially irresponsible wife? I'm female 32, and my brother, male 36, had a serious accident in his truck 4 years ago, resulting in him becoming disabled and wheelchair-bound. My sister-in-law, his wife, used to be a stay-at-home wife. She is currently handling his care and are essentially living off his Social Security benefits payments, which admittedly isn't a lot, but my parents pay for the house's mortgage, so there's enough money to get them by. My sister-in-law and I have never really gotten along, but we stay civil. However, my biggest argument with her happened days ago when she told us she was going to pursue her old job again to be able to earn money. My parents and I were confused. We asked, how is she going to go back to work when she has my disabled brother to care for? She told us she's going to hire a carer to handle all of my brother's needs, which triggered a very negative reaction in me and my parents. I told her she chose to become a stay-at-home wife, but she explained that circumstances change and she had to go back to work she left years ago to be able to provide for herself and my brother, and a carer is better qualified to care for my brother since she feels overwhelmed and exhausted. But I pointed out how a personal carer requires so much money and that her new commitment of a job cannot be put before her husband. I told her it was a bad idea, but she argued that she is in this situation, not me, and she's trying to improve it while I'm judging her from a distance. I told her she was wrong since this is my brother we're talking about, and I help with the mortgage, so in response, I called her a neglectful, selfish, financially irresponsible wife for throwing money, my brother's money, away on a carer when it's unnecessary and she is available, but she chooses to go back to work. She acted shocked and lashed out at me, saying I shouldn't have called her those cruel things and that I should show some empathy. I said I do have empathy for my brother and her too, but now that she's going to pay a carer using my brother's social security benefits, then I can't help but feel she's slowly checking out of her own marriage. She got highly offended that I question her love for my brother now that he's disabled and left in a rush after calling me nuts and awful. My mother agreed partially with what I said, but told me I went out of line by calling her neglectful, especially since she, sister-in-law, said she's wanting to go back to work to improve her living situation, but my dad is 100% on my side. Was I the jerk for my reaction, or was I justified? Whoa boy, you're not going to enjoy this comment section. Yes, you're the jerk. 1. Caregiver burnout is 100% real. Why not give your sister-in-law a break and you care for your brother for a week while she stays in a hotel? 2. She's probably trying to keep the marriage alive. Caring for somebody with disabilities is a lot like being a parent. Breaking that dynamic by hiring a carer is probably the single best thing for their relationship, not to mention increasing your brother's dignity. Did you ask what he thinks of this plan at any point? 3. Horrible as it sounds, permanently disabling injuries have a nasty tendency to reduce lifespan. Would you keep supporting your sister-in-law if your brother passed? Does she know that? She needs a safety net, which means a job and a pension. Not your marriage, not your business. Butt out. You're the jerk on every level, OP. How is your sister-in-law neglectful for being willing to pay for a medical professional to do something they're trained for? How is she neglectful for trying to add money into your brother's and her household? If you're so worried about them paying for your brother's care, I expect you or your mom to step up and take him in. You're the jerk. She is correct. A carer would be way more qualified to do their job than she is. Also, yeah, it is horrible to care for someone 24/7, especially a close family member. It is so physically, mentally, and emotionally draining. Take some PTO and put yourself in her shoes for however long you can to try and see what it's like. Until you are in her shoes, you may not judge her. It is very wonderful that you help pay for their mortgage. That does not mean you get to say she has to stay home all the time. Am I the jerk for telling my sister to reimburse me for 1/2 the cost of my wedding from 10 years ago? My younger sister got engaged a couple months before lockdown. Neither of us are close with our parents, and we are the only siblings. I'm 7 years older and more established in my career. My sister and her fiancé struggle financially, which is to be expected as they're just starting out. I'm not rich by any means, but have always done my best to help them when I can. Groceries, rent, etc., because I know that they would never get any help from our parents. When they announced their engagement, pre-lockdown, I was happy for them and offered to help them with some of the wedding costs and throwing a bridal shower. Then lockdown hit and all plans came to a grinding halt. My sister is incredibly impatient and doesn't think before she acts. She had asked about the bridal shower numerous times. I told her that we could not do this right now because of what's going on, and also that my financial situation has changed and I would not be comfortable spending this money until my work hours were back to normal. I also have bills and kids that need to come first. She got angry that I was unsupportive just like our parents, which upsets me immensely as I've done a lot for her, and decided to elope at City Hall a couple weeks ago. They didn't bother to tell anyone and just made a rude and dramatic post about it on Facebook. Not that anyone cares, but we got married today, blah blah blah, and then went to berate individual family members in the comments. No surprise that she ruffled quite a few feathers with this crap. She is not the first family member to elope, so the eloping wasn't the issue. I got a message from her earlier asking me about when we were having the bridal shower. I told her that we weren't, and that bridal showers are for before weddings. No one would go now anyways. She got upset again and made a comment about how she had not received any wedding gifts yet either. I told her that she likely won't be getting anything, as not only is it not customary to send gifts after someone elopes, but she's acting like an entitled jerk. She panicked. I guess she had been banking on these gifts, and then suggested that since I received over $6,000 worth of gifts 10 years ago, I should have to give her one half, and also still give her the money I was going to for the wedding, and that she had quit her job after the wedding because she thought she was getting this money. Here's where I might be the jerk. I lost my temper with her entitled crap. I refused to give her any more money. In my opinion, she should not have quit her job. I also told her that I'd write her a check for one half the gifts as soon as she paid one half the cost of my $40,000 wedding. Now she's whining on Facebook about how I'm petty and now she can't afford her rent. Edit for clarity. My bridal shower was 10 years ago, not my wedding. Want me to come to class and present despite being ill? Okay. For context, this was before 2020, back in my early university years, aka 2018 to 2019. It started one Wednesday morning when I woke up feeling like complete and utter crap. This was a problem, as today I was scheduled to do my oral presentation along with other students in one of my classes. But I figured no way would I be wanting to come in sick. And by sick, when I looked in that mirror, I was so pale I looked dead. My nose looked like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. My eyes were so sunken in that they were in the back of my head, and I was sweating like heck from a high fever. Oh, and my throat felt like it was made of sandpaper. Yeah, no way was I going into the lecture hall looking like this. So I went through the normal procedures, submitting a temporary absent form, which meant for the absent to be valid, I needed to go to a walk-in clinic, Joy, and call any professors or teachers' assistants to inform them of my absence. We have a lot of interactive stuff in lectures. That's also common courtesy, along with an email for a paper trail. My afternoon physics professor understood. My evening teaching assistant for earth sciences was cool with it. My morning chemistry professor? Either you stop lying and come in, or it's an automatic 0. I'm sorry? I've never missed one of your classes, even with a minor cold. But this? Okay, fine then. So I get up and my mom drives me in, as I didn't have my license yet. Long story, and she wasn't working that day. She's self-employed. She's worried about me, but I reassured her that I would only be about 20 minutes max. I get to the campus and walk in, heading to my lecture hall, and of course, looking like utter crap, stumbling because I'm also running a really high fever. I get a lot of weird looks, and some students even stopped me to ask if I was okay. I recall responding with something like, "I won't be if I'm late for class." When I do get to my lecture hall, I enter 2 minutes late. Professor sees me and goes, "OP, about time. Get down here and start your presentation or it's a fail." Alrighty. I went up, plugged in my laptop to the projector, and released an almighty round of wet coughing. Now, my lecture mates are whispering to each other, and Professor looks at me startled. But all I remember doing is looking right at the professor, smiling, and saying very hoarsely, "Sorry, I'll get started." She quickly tried to send me on my way, but I say, into the microphone, my voice sounding like a sick bear's, No, you said if I don't present, it's a 0. I can't fail 20% of my grade." So off I go, presenting with a hoarse voice, long, hacking, wet coughs, and with occasional almost throwing up. When I finished, I then turned to the professor and asked, again into the mic, "Do you need me to stick around for the other presentations, or can I go?" I was on my way to the doctor's within 5 minutes, and wouldn't you know, I had a serious case of the flu, something that the university did not want you to bring to campus because it could spread like wildfire. Needless to say, when I filed my full absence form with my doctor's note, I mentioned how my chemistry professor insisted upon me coming to class. I also included a screenshot of the email she sent me while I was being driven in, which stated the same thing she told me over the phone. When I was finally able to return to campus a week later, I was surprised to enter a class to see a substitute professor. I later looked at my email and saw a class notification that our original professor was placed on leave. She was let go by the end of the term. Reply: likely, this was not her first time doing this type of thing to a student. This is why reporting and always giving a paper trail of bad professors is important. It may not happen after you report, but one never knows what their file looks like. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance he doesn't get to name both of our babies? I'm pregnant with twins, and my fiance and I just found out we're having a boy and a girl. We started talking about names the other day. He told me that he really wanted to name the boy baby after himself, first and middle. I wasn't on board at first, but after thinking about it, I agreed. I told him that for the girl baby, I wanted her first name to be my sister's since we're very close, and the middle to be my dad's since he passed when I was young. My dad's name isn't really neutral, but it's becoming a common girl's name. My fiance got visibly sad and told me he wanted to name the girl baby after his mom and have the middle name be his dad's name. His dad's name is a neutral name. I told him that I didn't really think that it was fair that he got to name the first baby what he wanted, and now he gets to name the second baby also what he wants. I also said it wasn't fair that my family gets excluded. He said he really wanted to incorporate at least his mom's name. I told him that the girl baby's middle name can be his mom's, but then the boy's middle name is going to be my dad's. He said he wanted the baby boy named completely after him, so the baby is a junior. I told him he doesn't get to name both of the babies what he wants. He got upset about this comment and has been standoffish towards me. I don't think that was so awful of me to say, but now I'm second guessing my comment and wondering if I'm the jerk for it. Edit: I feel the need to clear something up because I'm seeing it a lot. Quite a lot of people keep telling me to give the kids original names and not name them after someone else. In my family, it's very normal to recycle names and name new babies after family members. It's actually considered abnormal if you give your baby an original name. I know this isn't the norm and it's weird for others, but like I said, it's normal for us and our family actually loves having recycled names. A few of us love that we have the same names. We don't find it weird and we enjoy it. Every family is different and our families enjoy sharing names. It's fine if you don't agree, but that's just how our family is. Not the jerk. Also, it's a nightmare paper-wise when a kid has the exact same name as their father. My family did this with my brother and it causes so many problems. I highly don't recommend that you do that. Also, my brother started to resent his name due to him wanting to be his own unique person and not a copy of dad. I highly recommend not going the junior route. Not the jerk. I presume he thinks they are both getting his last name too. Why shouldn't one get your last name? And he got visibly sad when he didn't get his way. It's time for you to start getting visibly sad that he can't respect your feelings. Here's a fair solution. You each choose two names. First name choice for one gender results in middle choice for the other. He picks Anne and Brad, you pick Claire and David. You end up with Anne Claire and David Brad, or you end up with Claire Anne and Brad David. Not the jerk, but you should both be naming them both. Naming kids should be 2 yeses or 1 no, and both parents need to be willing to accept it might not be their first choice. Which means he can say he wants a junior. You can say, yes, I like that, or no, I don't like that. But if you agree on it, then that is both of you picking it. I think that having the boy named after him and the girl named exclusively after your family might lead to some favoritism hang-ups. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiance? Please let us know.
That boy's selfish though, bruh. He need to let her name one though, baby.
I canceled all my in-laws' invitations to our Christmas celebration. So to give some context, I, female 32, have been married to my husband, male 39, for 4 years. I work a full-time job while he does a 3 times a week night shift. We have a 2-year-old and I'm 6 months pregnant. The whole drama started days ago. My husband has a large family and on every Christmas they'd gather at his father's house. My father-in-law passed away a year ago, and this year my husband decided as the man of the family to host Christmas at our house. Unbeknownst to me, he sent out invitations for a 5-day Christmas celebration to his entire family, which there are about 26 members in total. I found out about by accident, and I was too shocked to react. I confronted him on it, and he said I shouldn't be surprised and just get used to it, because after his father's passing, he's now the family's head, and all major family events will be held in our house and in his presence. I freaked out and said, no, this is wrong. and he should have talked to me first before sending out any invitations to his family, knowing I have other commitments like work and taking care of the house and our son. He said we'll manage if I took time off work, but that means more workload later, and it would take away from my maternity leave. I demanded he cancel the invitations, but he refused, saying, "Over my dead body," then walked out. I ended up sending a mass text to everyone who received an invitation explaining that we will not be hosting Christmas this year. He found out and went off on me, calling my behavior outrageously appalling and said that I broke his word to his family and made him look small and with no authority. I, in a very strict tone, replied that I didn't sign up to host a celebration and accommodate 26 people while pregnant, taking care of a toddler, and working. And I don't care if he becomes the head of the family after his father's passing because it means nothing to me. He took offense to that and walked out almost crying. He later talked about how I disrespected his father and him with what I had said and demanded a handwritten apology for canceling the event and for being insensitive towards him and undermining his authority in front of his family. But I said no apology from me in any form, and the issue is still up, especially with my mother-in-law giving me a stern talk about how out of line I was for disrespecting his decisions regarding the holiday celebration with family. ETA. To put this out there, he planned on sitting and telling stories of his dad while I handled everything, and his family believed that as guests, it's rude to ask them for help. Unless your husband was planning on doing all the cooking, hosting, entertaining, and taking care of the kids, not the jerk. I would seriously probably leave my husband if he spoke to me like this or acted this way. You're the one doing everything. If anything, you're the man of the family now. You work, take care of the kids, run the house. You're the one who has the authority, not him. And he comes from a family who thinks the same stupid stuff. I also probably would have carried on as life as usual and let him deal with the fallout of having to cook and entertain, as he gave you no notice and you have a job and a life. I'd show up home every day like a guest. Seriously, this man and his family are raising your kids with the same mentality. Consider whether you want your kids to be like them. If you want to continue to endure this wild behavior, you can walk away and leave him to it. Not the jerk. First of all, absolutely not to a written apology. Is that a joke? He invited everyone without consulting you, and you uninvited them without consulting him. You did the same as him, and now he has the audacity to be upset at you? I'd be asking him for a written apology. Was he going to host everything, including cleaning the house, buying and preparing food for everyone? I'm assuming he was expecting you to chip in. He should have asked you first and asked if you could take the time off. When was he going to tell you? When the family started turning up? You can't just not work for 5 days without giving notice. He didn't think about you at all in this situation, and being very pregnant, you might not be up for hosting 26 people for 5 days. He's the jerk and should be apologizing. He's completely in the wrong here and needs to work on his communication skills ASAP. I'd be so upset if I were you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Hopefully he'll be an ex-husband soon. The guy sounds insufferable.
Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor's kids they could not sled on my hill? The house I recently moved into has a hill on the edge of the yard. I've talked to my neighbors a few times, and they seemed like nice people. A couple days ago, we got our first real snowfall of the winter. My neighbors reached out to me and asked if I minded if their kids went sledding on the hill. They said that the previous owner of the house had let them use it, but they wanted to check with me. I hardly use that part of the yard and have no need for it when it's covered with more than a foot of snow, so I said sure. However, today they reached out again. They explained that they would like me to bring my dog inside while their kids are sledding because it makes them nervous. I told them that she was always tied up when she was outside and no danger to them, but they were welcome to keep their kids inside if they saw her out, and that if their kids were sledding, I would stay out with her. They said that since the bottom of the hill was on their land, I couldn't restrict their access to it, and that I was endangering them by letting my dog be outside unsupervised with them. I repeated what I said and added that if they wanted to meet my dog, they could come over to meet her sometime. They just got more upset I wouldn't bring her inside and ended up threatening to call animal control on me for having an out-of-control dog. For reference, she's a maybe 40-pound older mixed breed who could probably not forge her way through the snow to where the kids are sledding even if she wanted to. She just loves sitting out in the snow. I was very upset at this point and told them they could forget about their kids sledding on the hill and that if they were going to make unreasonable demands, they could not come on my property. They tried backtracking, but ended up getting upset at me again. Now I'm wondering if I'm being the jerk, because I could just agree to their requests and bring her inside. Am I the jerk? Edit. Since I keep getting asked this, my dog asks to go outside and is let in when she wants to come in, and I make sure she is safe while out there. Not the jerk. Honestly, you shouldn't let them anyway. If they got hurt sledding on your land, you would be liable. They could make your homeowner's insurance pay for medical bills. Not the jerk. They don't have a right to tell you what to do with your own pet on your property, as long as there's no danger to the dog, blah blah, and other caveats. You even tried to compromise by letting them meet and connect with your elderly dog, who wouldn't even be anywhere near the kids. You have no obligation to support their lifestyle wants for their kids on your property, but on their terms. Also, even threatening to report your dog equals instant enemy zone in my eyes. They're basically threatening to remove a part of your family if you don't do what they want you to. That's trash. Not the jerk. You're doing them a kindness and they crapped all over it. You can't prevent them from accessing the bottom of the hill that is on their property, but you can sure as heck stop them from starting their sledding from the top. Assuming you want to live there for a while, the best thing you could do is put a fence on your property line. No more sledding, no more danger that they will injure themselves and sue you. No worry that your properly secured, older, just hanging out in the snow dog will endanger them by being wild and out of control. Am I the jerk? I hate the Christmas gifts I get from my partner, even though I asked for them. I, 30 female, am currently in a fight about this with my partner, 35 male. We've been together for about 4 years now, and a version of this conversation seems to happen a couple times a year. It always goes like this. Him. What do you want for Christmas? Me. Give specific answer. Him. Cool. Send me a link. I send the link. Him. You know, I have an old one of these I could fix up for you instead. Me. Well, I really like this one because of the color, shape, size. It matches my stuff. I have already done the research, etc. And I was thinking of getting it for myself anyway. You don't really have to. Him. But I could just give you this one that's just sitting here unused. I should mention that we both have well-paying jobs and are child-free. We split bills and the mortgage and have savings. We're not rich, but money has not been an issue. We are fortunate. We can do nice things like eat takeout or go on a small vacation every once in a while, and we communicate well. He admits he needs guidance thinking of gift ideas for people. I usually give in because I don't want to seem wasteful or spoiled. I don't need any gifts from him at all, but he always insists for birthdays and Christmas, so I try to be honest and name something I would actually use that's not too expensive, so it's easy for him. But he always gets me a hand-me-down, thrifted, imitation brand, or jerry-rigged version. One year, I pointed out a $75 used bike in a shop. He gave me his old bike. He's 6'5", I'm 5'4". Last year, I asked for a hot stone massage at a spa. He gave me some massage oil and a coupon free massage from him. How can I say no to that without sounding ungrateful? It was lovely, but it was not a real massage. So now, just this evening, he asked me again. Me. Well, I've been browsing for a new tent for camping this summer. A dome one, so we don't have to stoop inside as much when we… Him. Oh, cool. My dad has a tent he doesn't use anymore. Me. Is it a dome tent? Him, laughing. No, it's his old army tent. Me, exploding. Why even ask me what I want if it doesn't matter what I actually want? Sometimes I just want what I want. Him. Whoa, you should hear yourself. I want. Backs away with his hands up. I'm sitting in our room alone feeling like a selfish jerk while he calls all of his duties downstairs. He plays that when he's upset. Not the jerk. You have every right to be upset. It seems he doesn't care about getting you what you want, and he just cares about saving money. This is somewhat petty, but if you want him to understand what you mean, switch out his Call of Duty game for a lower quality game, or just a different one. And when he complains, tell him that it's the same thing. It's a video game, what's the difference? This is a more aggressive approach, but I think it would get it through his head. Not the jerk. He listens, but not fully or completely, which would drive any woman utterly insane. Try one more time and try to clearly explain the problem. Use this as a specific example. I said a dome. You said your dad has an old tent, but it's not a dome tent. So your dad's tent is a no because it's not a dome tent, which is what I'm asking for. If he refuses to see the difference, your bike example is ludicrous. Did he even ask, "Hey, why don't you ride the bike I gave you?" Seriously, I would refuse to give him any more gift ideas because it is obviously pointless and frustrating for you. Let him figure out what to get instead of you giving specifics, and he takes them as jumping off points. God bless you. The bike would have been my breaking point. Not the jerk. You don't want to seem ungrateful, but if someone wants to give you hand-me-downs, normally in my family, we do it just because, not on special occasions. We normally get each other nice gifts on birthdays, Christmas, etc. I wouldn't feel like a jerk if I were you. It would get old for me as well. 4 years is a long time to not get at least one nice new meaningful gift. If you could try talking to him without getting mad, say it's always bothered you, and maybe it was how he was raised, but you would like to start getting each other nice new gifts. If he doesn't, you said you're good financially, so go and buy what you want. Get that dome tint you want, the massage you want, and if he really cares, he'll start realizing that he should hopefully try to get you more meaningful gifts that you'd enjoy. That's just my take on it. I hope everything goes okay, and I hope you get what you would like this year. Am I the jerk for demanding that my mother display photos of my wife in her house? I got married 2 years ago to the love of my life. I feel like my mom doesn't really like her, but the relationship is mostly okay. Honestly, I have a feeling since I got married, I've been left out of a lot of stuff, but the only one I can prove is my mom's birthday trip. To be clear, no one is straight up rude, but it is clear my mom and wife don't vibe, and the rest of the family seems meh about her, which does make me sad. My mom has a wall with a lot of pictures on it. There are plenty of pictures of my sister's partner, and there are pictures of extended family, but not a single one of my wife. My mom has pictures of her because some of these were taken at events we were at, but she just chooses the ones without my wife. Honestly, this is not something I would have picked up on, but my wife did, and it bothered her. My wife's family is huge on family, and while I don't think my mother-in-law loves me, she definitely includes me in everything. I brought it up to my mom, and she said she hadn't noticed. I said I didn't really believe her, and she shrugged and said my wife isn't her daughter. I pointed out that my sister's partner isn't her son, or my aunt's husband isn't her brother, but she has pictures of them. My mom said it was her house, and the whole conversation is dumb. I said she can't exclude the love of my life, and my mom said this is a really pathetic thing to care about, and we're being weird. My wife was upset and feels like it was a clear statement, so I told my mom she could either put up some pictures of my wife or we wouldn't be coming over. My mom said, "Okay, don't come over." That was probably 4 or 5 months ago. I checked up about Christmas and asked if she had put up even one picture. My mom said no, she wasn't going to. We can't make her, and just don't come to Christmas and see if she cares. Well, we won't be going to Christmas, but my sister is super upset at me and thinks I'm an entitled jerk, and I heard my stepdad was making fun of us. I don't feel too bad because everything I've read online talks about how you have to be a united front. Not the jerk. You were doing everything right. Time to show them how much better your life is without them. I know with current events, travel can be tricky, but you should try to do something special for Christmas and take lots of photos. Also, never take or post another photo of yourself without your wife ever again. If you really want to get petty, if you know there's something your mom wants, but your stepdad hasn't delivered, for example, a piece of jewelry she wants, buy one for your wife and make sure your mom finds out indirectly, and take and post photos. Edit. For those having a problem with my petty suggestion, the part about other significant others being included and not OP's wife really ticked me off. If all significant others were left out, I'd just say let it go. But if OP's wife is going to be singled out, I say unleash the petty kraken and give it a camera. Not the jerk. I experienced something very similar. My stepdad, who married my mom and was my only father figure, adopted me when I was 4. His grandmother had pictures proudly displayed in her house, all over, of every possible family member and friend, especially the little ones. She had pictures of my stepdad, mom, and my half-sister. They had after they got married, but never any of me. No one ever said anything until one day I was looking for something I was told to get in their house and found all of the pics my mom had given her over the years at the bottom of a drawer, crumpled and damaged under a lot of stuff. When I asked her what was up, I was in high school at this point, she just said, "You aren't family, you're just his wife's kid." No one defended me, said anything, or even remotely tried to confront her when I told them. So yeah, you did the right thing. I was only a kid, and your wife is an adult, but the hurt feels the same. Everyone sucks here. Your mom sucks because I believe in your gut feelings. If she has something to say about your wife, she should just tell you. But you kinda suck too, because even if you stood up for your spouse, you made it about telling her how she should be decorating her own house, and she's right to stand her ground on this point. My advice would be to call her again, not about decorating, but about the true issue, why she seems to exclude your wife. You're the jerk. Are you paying her mortgage? How about electricity and water? If not, why should you get to dictate whose picture she puts up? If I don't like someone, I'm not putting their pictures up, period. If I was your mother, I'd tell you to kick rocks too. Edit. I'm a 62-year-old woman with 2 sons. Both of their wives are darlings, and I have several pictures of them up. But if they were little jerks, you bet your butt I wouldn't have any pictures of them on display. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his mom? Please let us know.
Mama doesn't sound very nice. Have you thought about throwing her from the train?
Am I the jerk for deciding I won't give any Christmas gifts this year after my mom canceled a transaction on my card? I'm still angry over this, and I may not write very well. And also, I probably don't judge the situation very well being this angry, so I come to you. I'm a student. I have a student bank account where my college gives me money for transport when we had physical classes or scholarship. These kinds of bank accounts have no fees but are age restricted. Can't have one if you're over 25 and need an overseer. When I asked the bank about it, they told me it's just a security thing, so I chose my mom because she's more tech savvy than my dad. Well, through some incredible luck, I managed to get only top grades last year, so I was awarded a study scholarship. Great! I've been saving it up, looking forward to worldwide Black Friday, eyeing an amazing drawing tablet. I do digital art on very old intros. The tablet I was eyeing is as big as my monitor. It's a display one and all around amazing. Black Friday rolls in, and Amazon in Germany, closest to me, has it in stock at an amazing price, a price I could afford. I was so happy I ordered it. Then I got a notice that the bank refused the card. I emailed Amazon, their customer service is so fast, and we went over the card details and such, making sure it was all right. It was, and they advised me to call my bank. It was odd. I had bought things online in the past with this card and it went through. I had enough money for it, even extra. So I thought maybe they had technical difficulties, but it was too late in the day to call and they don't work weekends, so I left an email. Only to find out today that for big transactions, they ask for agreement from the overseer and that mine canceled the transfer. I was like, what the heck? And confronted mom about it, who throughout the weekend acted oblivious, and she told me that of course she couldn't let me throw money on something I don't need, and that I wouldn't have money for Christmas presents if I bought that. Then she had the audacity to ask me what I was planning to get my family this year. I told her that they won't get anything more than a bread shadow from me, and I went to my room and cried on the carpet. I missed out on the offer. I can't afford the tablet anymore, and it's all because mom wanted Christmas gifts. And no, I won't get her anything. Last year she got me a blouse too small for me that she later took for herself. She can gift herself this year too. A bread shadow is an expression for nothing in my language. Edit. Thank you so much for people offering me money in comments and DMs, but I can't accept that. I'm really grateful for you trying to help me, but I really can't take that. I'm really thankful for the offers and advice. So many people offered me advice, money, their tablets, or other means of helping, and I'm really thankful to you all. Also, lots of you told me to check the sale that's going on right now, but the tablet I ordered wasn't on sale. Yet, Epic Hamster found it. Same specs, different seller. For sale at an even better price than the Black Friday sale. I ordered it, it went through this time, and I'm so happy and excited. Thank you from all of my heart to everyone. I'm still going to reply to all of you, even if it's going to take me all night. Happy holidays to all of you. Frequently asked questions. This account I have to have because of my uni, but I'm going to make dad the overseer and also open an account at another bank, a normal one, and transfer the money in small amounts to that one so I don't bother dad with it. I'm an adult in my country. I'm 20, going to be 21 in April. The law asks my parents to support me until I finish my studies, or at least until I'm 26, but I plan on moving out sooner. I will gift my sister and dad. They have nothing to do with the incident and I love them lots. I love mom too, but can't put up with her attitude any longer. Regarding what I'll give her, not sure yet, but there are some amazing ideas in the comments. She didn't react like that because she got me the tablet already. It's not her character to get me something she can't use. Regarding the gift Dad's planning on, and which she'll claim is from both of them, Dad is going to build a bigger enclosure for my lizard. I may wrap my lizard's old branches nice and gift them to Mom, as per Christmas traditions regarding naughty kids. And she doesn't like my scaly boy at all, so double points I guess. People saying that a drawing tablet is useless, thanks for your input, but the question was if I was a jerk for the way I reacted and my decision to not give her a gift anymore. As it's my money, I literally can do whatever I wish with it, and a display drawing tablet is incredibly useful for an aspiring digital artist as myself. My wife is obsessed with video games, and I don't know what to do anymore. Hello there. I'm currently typing this from my car, after my wife has told me she doesn't want me near her right now, hoping this thread will be a wake-up call to her. My wife, female 33, is a big nerd, which I normally appreciate, but she's taking things way too far today. She took today off of work so she could be up at 4 a.m. to play her online game at launch. I didn't wake up until about an hour ago, 10:30, and she was still playing. I mentioned that I was hungry, hoping we could make breakfast together, which we like to do together. She instead said that I should order us something from DoorDash. I'm in the middle of a dungeon and may be a while. I didn't really want to get takeout because we had already discussed ordering pizza tonight for dinner, and that's a lot of takeout food for one day. I calmly explained this, and she got upset and shrieked at me that she just wanted one weekend to focus on her video game. I said that it was unfair to our family for her to isolate all weekend, and she got even more mad, telling me that I have 2 hands and I can feed the darn cat. I was in tears at this point, and I did raise my voice and said that I was worried she's obsessed with this game and maybe she needs professional help. She threw her car keys at me and said that I need to get out of her face, that she works all the time and doesn't ask for much, and I need to leave her be and get out of her face for a few hours. I'm truly concerned that she has become obsessed with this online game, and I'm hoping that maybe reading this thread will wake her up to it, but I might have been the jerk too. Edit. Some additional info I forgot. It isn't just today. For the last few weeks, she's been hyping herself up for this. When the game got delayed, she moved her vacation time rather than just keep her previous day off and spend it with me. She's been absolutely freaking out about this game, and I don't understand it, and it scares me. You're the jerk. Dude, she isn't obsessed with a game. A lot of people wake up early or stay up late for the launches of games. It's not unusual. It sounds like you're just mad that she's not cooking for you and that you have to feed yourself and the cat. When you mention you like to make breakfast together, how much do you do in that? I also call BS on the calmly explained and she freaked out and went hysterical portion of this. Chances are you whined about it and she got annoyed. And do you have kids? Because if you don't and it's just you two and the cat, then how is playing a game for a few hours unfair? If she works all the time and this is her way to unwind, let her. She's not hurting anyone, and you are a grown adult capable of taking care and entertaining yourself. I also see that she said the dungeon might take a few hours, not 2 to 3 days. You didn't want this thread to wake her up. You just wanted validation from strangers online about your whining. You're the jerk. Is she right? Here are a few questions to Maul. 1. Does she work a lot? 2. Does she not ask for much most of the time? 3. Was it a special launch day rather than just a regular day? In that case, make your breakfast, feed the cat, and find something to do. If she spends most of her leisure time online and you guys don't share regular meals, that's therapy time. From what you've said, this was a special launch that she took a vacation day for. You guys often do breakfast together and you'd already planned for dinner together. There's also something unpleasantly manipulative about how you present the story, and that's never a good sign. You're either not self-aware enough to know you're trying to bias the readers, or you genuinely can't see both sides of an argument. I'd say it's therapy time, but for you both. You're the jerk. Not the jerk, but why did you marry a nerd? I can't stand the thought of my wife playing video games or watching anime. If you had married someone a little more mature, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. She sounds more like an out-of-control daughter. Life tip: don't marry someone who plays with their little toys and watches cartoons. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Let her play that game, bruh. Why you tripping though?
Don't want to let me fix people's cars for free? Alrighty then, Let's do business. My grandpa was a successful man, and in his mid-60s, he decided he wanted to take a step back, so he started selling off his businesses. He sold his various businesses and spent the next few years traveling. As he approached 70, he got bored in addition to a few new grandchildren, so he needed a bigger house. He sold the old home that he had bought after he got back from Vietnam and bought this massive house on this large piece of land. The property also came with a massive steel barn. Not sure if he had ever told anyone about his plans, but right after he got the property, he dumped a ton of money into tools and equipment and converted his barn into a mechanic's dream. Some things I remember having. He had a professional lift, capable of lifting full-size trucks. He had those professional oil catchers you see at Quick Lubes. He had a dedicated air compressor system that was designed to power all his power tools. He had a tire machine to mount new tires. He had so much equipment, his tool corner was a massive corner of this massive barn. His plan? To fix cars, especially for people in need. He lived in a rural community. If you didn't have a car, that was a big problem. So he let everyone know at his local church that he was willing to work on their cars if they provided the parts. He only took a few jobs a week. He was doing this to enjoy himself and help those who needed it. He'd of course change oil, change the transmission fluid, and all kinds of various repairs. My grandpa was a talented mechanic. However, he kept the amount of work limited. He was also selective. If you were in need, he'd want to fix your cars. If you had the means to pay, he'd decline and ask you to go elsewhere. One day, the owner of the local car dealership came by and told my grandpa he needed to stop fixing other people's cars because he wasn't properly licensed, didn't have the proper insurances, and he was hurting his business. My grandpa explained this is just his hobby. He only does a few cars a week. The owner told him he needs to cut it out or he's going to sue my grandpa out of business. My grandpa said he laughed over this. What business was this guy going to sue him out of? The owner walked out. A little while later, my grandpa got served, and he was being sued by the owner of the car dealership. My grandpa thought he'd take a trip down to the dealership and try and reason with this man. My grandpa hoped he could come to an understanding. My grandpa spoke to the owner and basically explained, he only works on cars for people who are down on their luck. The fact is, the people's cars he fixes probably couldn't afford to pay a professional dealership to fix their vehicle. He only does a few cars a week. He's not all that interested into getting in a fight over his hobby, but he ain't going to back down. Well, they ended up in court. By this point, my grandpa had hired a lawyer who was able to get the city to approve a commercial garage on his property. It helped that he lived on the outskirts of town and had 6 acres of property. The court told my grandpa his auto repair shop is operating illegally. If my grandpa wants to continue, he's going to need to get a business license, get the proper insurances, and if he does that, he will be good to go. Now, what do you think a man who has nothing but time and money in this situation is going to do? He's going to get his business license and insurances, of course, which he did, and that surprised no one. But he went further. Got a dedicated phone line ran into his shop, hired a full-time mechanic, put up a professional sign, set up a little waiting area with a water cooler. What shocked everyone even more, he ran a local TV ad saying he was a pay-what-you-can mechanic shop, reservations only. Put ads in the newspaper saying the same thing. Yes, folks, that's right. My grandpa is not only a licensed, legal auto repair business, he has a certified mechanic on his payroll, and he's running ads. As for his prices, they were quite simple. You either bring the parts yourself and pay the mechanic whatever you wanted. Mechanic got a separate wage for my grandpa, so if you couldn't pay anything, that was fine. Had my grandpa sourced your parts, he'd charge you at the parts, and you'd pay the mechanic whatever you want. My grandpa started taking jobs, and boy, did that shop get busy. It was impossible to beat Grandpa's price. Grandpa was essentially paying to fix your cars for you. My grandpa would spend his days with the mechanic that he had hired working on cars. He loved it. The owner of the local car dealership was furious. He sued my grandpa again. They went to court, and the judge basically said my grandpa owned a licensed, insured auto repair business. What he charges his customers for his services is completely up to him, even if that means doing the work for free. About a year or so later, my grandpa gets a call from a lawyer who says he's representing a potential buyer of the local car dealership. However, the buyer wants to speak to my grandpa. My grandpa agreed, he sat down with a new potential buyer who expressed his concerns about buying the dealership. Service is a major profit center for a dealership, and he's considering buying the local dealership. However, he doesn't want to buy the dealership if my grandpa is going to keep operating the way he is, because it's impossible for a for-profit business to compete against someone selling their services for free. My grandpa agrees that there's no way someone looking to make a profitable business could ever compete against him, so they came to an agreement. The owner buys the dealership, and my grandpa would only work on a few cars a week, maybe 5 to 6, only work on people's cars who are down on their luck and probably too poor to be able to pay a professional dealership to fix their car. Any parts he needs, he will buy from the dealership. Any work he declined, he'd refer to the dealership. The new owner of the dealership agreed to. Dealership must agree to let my grandpa be, stay out of his way, and dealership must hire his mechanic. They shook hands. The local dealership was bought out, and for the next 9 years, my grandpa would fix people's cars who were down on their luck. If he had to buy the parts, he'd buy them from the dealership. And as for that mechanic my grandpa hired, he ended up becoming the service manager and did quite well for himself. As for my grandpa, when he was 80, he had a heart attack in his shop. Luckily, one of his grandkids was there, and they got him to the hospital and he made a full recovery. But the doctor told him his body couldn't handle working in that garage anymore. He ended up shutting down after that. For the next 3 years, he looked out his kitchen window, staring at his shop, remembering all the fun he had in his garage. He passed away at 83, surrounded by friends and family. Reply: I like that when people have forget you money and they use it for good, unselfish deeds. OP: he did have forget you money. My dad was concerned with the fact that my grandpa was paying a mechanic a full-time wage, yet not bringing in any revenue to even offset the mechanic's cost. My grandpa said, "Son, I could write that man, the mechanic, a check right now, so large he could live comfortably for the rest of his life and never work again. So don't worry what I'm paying him." My grandpa was a successful businessman, but he always had compassion. He did a lot of things throughout his life for the benefits of others. He once told me he believed in karma and what goes around comes around. So if he helps someone out, even if that person can never repay him, one day, some way, he will get repaid. I'm just rambling. But as an example, there was this family, a husband and wife with 3 kids. Well, the husband was lost in a car accident. The wife was struggling to make ends meet. At the time, my grandpa owned a grocery store. For the first month after her husband passed, my grandpa refused to charge her for the groceries she bought. The woman got a job. It didn't pay a lot, but it was a job. She insisted she pay. My grandpa agreed, but she'd get a 50% discount. Any grocery store that is giving a 50% discount on everything is losing money. When she got promoted at her job several years later, my grandpa went back to charging her full price. Am I the jerk for telling my cousin it's his own fault that his adult daughter isn't as successful as her friends? I'm 28, female, and my second cousin, 53, male, has been going on and on non-stop lately to the rest of our family about how disappointing his daughter, 24, female, is for not being a real adult and being a lot less successful than her friends. My cousin has a group of friends his age whose kids his daughter grew up with, and their kids have all been close friends with his daughter forever. My cousin strongly believes kids shouldn't receive any help from their parents in life once they turn 18, and parents have no responsibilities once their kids are of age. So he cut his daughter off on her 18th birthday and refused to pay for her college or anything, even though he had plenty of money for it. She went to a state school and still lives with multiple roommates in a crappy apartment after graduating, and she has an average job. She has no savings or investments since she's paying off tens of thousands in student debt. Meanwhile, all her friends who she grew up with, my cousin's friends' kids, had good parents who paid for their college and helped them financially, and they're all vastly more successful than his daughter. They went to high-ranking colleges since their parents were actually supportive financially, graduated debt-free, and they all have well-paying jobs now. They're all living in nice lofts without roommates and are starting to do adult things, like putting down mortgages on homes. Most of them have a lot of savings and investments already since they have no student debt. My cousin is furious with his daughter since she's in crippling debt and still has roommates, and he always hears from his friends about all the great things their kids are doing. He calls her his greatest disappointment and a failure, and they aren't talking because they hate each other. He constantly whines about what a useless kid he has. I just told him to shut up already. If he wanted his daughter to be successful, he would have been a good parent and financially supported her. He clearly wanted her to fail, so he can't play victim now that she's doing much worse in life than all his friends' kids. Not the jerk. At 24, she has 1. Graduated college, and I find nothing subpar about attending a state college. Went to one myself. 2. Is gainfully employed. 3. Is responsibly paying their debts. May I please place a wager that while he cut her off because she needed to stand on her own 2 feet, he also didn't stop claiming her on his taxes to get the income credit, preventing her from applying for grants. 4. Lives independently from him. At 53, he is 1. Still weighing his own success on the shoulders of his kid. And 2. Defines their success to the Joneses, when the Joneses actually gave a crap about their kid and gave them a massive leg up. He didn't even provide boots with soles. I don't know. I'm feeling like 1 out of 2 listed above is actually doing great and is an absolute success, especially after surviving a dad like that. Your cousin should see this thread to know how great they're doing and how many people are rooting for her. I kept my job and the villain got punished. Some years ago, I got a job tankering a barge. A barge is basically a floating container that gets towed around port to port. Tankering means to load it with fuel, or whatever product you carry, and discharge it in another port. There were 2 other tankermen, but we worked 4 weeks on, 2 weeks home, so in my 4 weeks, I'd work 2 weeks with one of the other tankermen, 2 weeks with the other. I was pretty new to tankering, but I had been working on boats for a few years and enjoyed it. There was little I liked more than getting on a ratty, rusty boat and chipping rust and painting until the boat was looking sharp. But I was a novice tankerman. And this boat was not looking sharp. Rust everywhere, storerooms a mess, dirty inside and out. The 2 other tankermen were of the opinion they were tankermen only, meaning they did nothing but tanker the barge, despite their job titles being deckhand/tankerman. They felt chipping and painting was beneath them and did no other work. Both of them were from down south. One Cajun, I'll call Gumbo, and a guy from Mobile, I'll call Darnell. From my first trip, they both took a dislike to me. Darnell mostly because he was lazy and just wanted to hang out on the stern and fish. Once I started busting tail around the ship, he knew he had to start doing something, and he didn't like that. Gumbo, however, he really hated me. He considered himself barge captain, a title that didn't exist except in his mind, and saw me as a threat to his imaginary throne by improving things. It wasn't just the boat. I got all the old load plans out of the places they were cramming them, organized them by fuel amount, and put them in a binder. That way, when the customer said, "Please load 68,840 barrels for us," I would flip to the closest previous load to that amount, and we would see how much to put in each tank to match the amount. As a result, loads started getting closer and closer to the requested amount, making the customer happy. Gumbo and Darnell tended to just wing it, but being new, I was a little retentive about doing it properly. When I am in unfamiliar territory, I tend to be retentive to the point of OCD to make sure I get it right. Also, I really did not want an oil spill on my watch. This went on for months, me getting more and more comfortable with tankering and annoying the other 2 by organizing storerooms, cleaning and organizing lockers, and generally making the boat a better place. Heck, I was even cooking. Strangely, there weren't too many accolades coming my way, and thanks to the assistant engineer, Jim Bob, I found out why. You see, when Big Boss would come, it would tend to be when I was home. Gumbo and Darnell were bad-mouthing me behind my back, harping on my lack of experience, magnifying small errors, and concern trolling that they were just trying to be safe. Even worse, all the changes I made, they took credit for. It wasn't 5 Frog cleaned out the paint locker, it was we got the paint locker cleaned out. Jim Bob often worked extra hitches and was a witness to everything. Jim Bob was a good guy, but from a poor town in Louisiana, dropped out of high school at 15 and was functionally illiterate. His illiteracy kept him from advancing, and as he was the only crew member to befriend me, I helped him out with his job, showing him all kinds of tips to streamline things, like putting an Excel spreadsheet on his work computer that allowed him to quickly track and monitor fuel and lube use. After a while, he began relaying to me what was happening behind my back. His exact words, "You and I are like brothers, so I say this to you as a brother. They're out to get you." I kind of figured this was what was going on, as they had both begun to play the passive-aggressive game we in the industry call playing games, so I knew I was odd man out. About this time, one of the barge's pumps went out, and the first thing the mechanic said was it was due to a lack of maintenance, meaning tankermen weren't lubing, oiling, or greasing the pumps. At crew change, Big Boss came down to chew us all out, and like a fool, I said I had no idea we were supposed to do these things. Naturally, 100% of the blame came down on me for this, and my response was humility, asking what needed to be done. Big Boss made out a maintenance plan that the pumps would be serviced every 2 weeks, to be done by the tankermen returning, with a log of the work done to be completed. After what Jim Bob told me, I decided to adhere to compliance to the point of obsession. I would know those pumps so well, I could teach a course on them. As I had just returned that day, I went full-on OCD, doing every check, measurement, fluid level twice, and logging it all. I asked Jim Bob what kind of grease and how many squirts to use. I counted the squirts and logged them. He had all the grease, so I got it from him. I logged all of my maintenance in the log book. Not only that, Jim Bob had all the grease in the engine room, so I had to get it from him. I logged that too. 1 tube marine grade number 2345, whatever. Jim Bob and I also went over to the pump with a fine-tooth comb and found every one of the grease points. I added that list to the maintenance log. Funnily, I noticed that whenever I came back, the logbook, which was really just a handful of pages set aside in a crappy notebook we kept in the crew area, hadn't been updated since I'd left. It occurred to me that I was the whipping boy. Gumbo and Darnell really thought they had me where they wanted me and didn't do anything on the barge. Months later, one of the other barges had a minor fire due to overheating, about 3 days before I was supposed to arrive. Company hired a third party to check all maintenance fleet-wide, and ours didn't do well. Big Boss came down with notes to ensure we were following the protocol he laid down. Big Boss asked if we'd been doing the required maintenance. At this point, I'd been done over by these guys for over a year and had calmly practiced my response to any question. When Big Boss asked if we'd been following the protocol, I replied that I did it within a day of my arrival, every 6 weeks. Darnell mentioned that the pumps were so dry when he arrived, it looks like they ain't been greased in months. I replied that I could guarantee they had been greased at least once every 6 weeks, as I was the one that greased them. Then Darnell made the mistake of saying something that set the whole situation aflame. "Okay, well, if you say you've been doing maintenance, okay. They just look to me like they're starved for oil." Me. I get them the day I get back every time. I even log my work. "Do you?" Darnell. "Log it where? Where do you log it?" Drunk Captain. "I ain't never got a request to log anything." Me. "In the maintenance log Big Boss requested months ago." Gumbo and Darnell. "What? What log is that?" The logbook tended to be ignored by the other two, and usually when I got back, it was buried under newspapers and magazines. I walked up to the tray underneath the TV and pulled it out. I casually flipped to the maintenance log section and showed them the places I had logged the work I had done. As an added bonus, I actually started an entry for the next guy, so all he had to do was fill in numbers. Stuff like name, date serviced, hours run, oil amount added, filters changed, yes or no. Naturally, it was all blank. As an added bonus, I had made sure to not wash my hands before log entries, so I couldn't be accused of pencil whipping due to greasy fingerprints. I sat quietly while Big Boss, Gumbo, Darnell, and the captain read the maintenance log, consisting of my entries and my entries only. Me and Jim Bob just watched each other, expressionless. Both Gumbo and Darnell tried to cover for each other, claiming they had seen the other doing the required maintenance, but Big Boss was no dummy. "Where'd you get the grease and filters from? I see no record of transfer from the engine room to the barge." Darnell said, "Well, we get the grease from Jim Bob all the time. I've asked for at least 4 or 5 tubes. Ain't I, Jim Bob?" All eyes on Jim Bob. Jim Bob did the most amazing thing. Scowling at Darnell, he stood up, threw his coffee cup in the trash, and walked the 20 feet to his cabin. The slamming of the door was like a judge's gavel coming down. I took the dark path. Big boss, I'm sorry for any problems. After what happened in April, I've been obsessed with ensuring the pumps were properly maintained on my watch. I'm happy to show you where all 17 grease points are and my routine for servicing them. I know the pumps backwards and forwards at this point. Five Frog, that won't be necessary. I've seen all I need to. He snapped the logbook shut and told the captain, "We'll talk later," and disembarked the vessel without another word. There's no juicy ending here. Gumbo got transferred to the punishment boat, the worst boat/barge in the fleet, and got written up for arguing with that captain on his first hitch, last I heard. We got a new tankerman, bizarrely a cousin of Darnell's, but I was pretty confident at this point and took the lead in training him. Darnell was a always be on the winning team kind of guy and let me take the lead. We wound up with a pretty good crew, hard-working, hard partying, just how I like it. When they hired a new captain, he was a guy that had come up with Big Boss, which is why he got the job. And he told Big Boss, "You know Five Frog is about the only guy worth a darn on here." I still have the eval he wrote for me. It's on my darn LinkedIn page. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit my neighbor's kids? My husband and I, female, moved into a new neighborhood a few weeks back. The new house is great. We have our own yard, and both of us and our doggies enjoy it a lot. We're childless, and we don't plan on having kids. We're not comfortable around them, especially the young ones, and we have zero experience in dealing with them. Our neighborhood is full of parents. We're the only childless couple. Since we moved in, we've been friendly with our neighbors and their kids, but we don't join their activities. They have barbecue parties, swimming pool parties, and they gather with their kids, etc. And we don't really like the noise of kids, so we just keep our distance. Some have made rude comments about this, saying we need to socialize more, and I kept explaining that's how we are, and they need to accept it. Anyways, yesterday one neighbor came to me asking if I could babysit her two kids, who are 5 and 7, all day on Saturday. I politely declined, explaining that I don't feel comfortable taking care of them. And even if I were, I have no time to babysit because I'm doing some freelancing in the weekend, which I don't want to reschedule since I'm very much enjoying it and making money out of it. She said okay and left. Then her husband came and demanded I explain myself. I said I already did, and he said that not feeling comfortable isn't a reason, and I'm a lady. How can I possibly feel uncomfortable? That annoyed me, and I snapped, telling him he doesn't get to dictate what I'm supposed to feel, and I have no obligation to watch their kids. There are many other parents in the neighborhood that can do that, or they could hire a babysitter. He said, why hire when I'm childless and available for free? I got really angry and screamed at him that I'm not a free babysitter just because I don't have my own kids. I told him to buzz off and never come to me with such ridiculous demands. The neighborhood group chat blew up immediately with all sorts of bad comments about me. They've been calling me names for refusing to help. When my husband came home, he was shocked at their demands and wanted to go yell at them some, but I stopped him. Now, some of the comments in the chat made me think they're right, and I am the jerk. It's tough raising kids, and it's difficult to find reliable babysitters. So, am I the jerk for not helping the parents? I was pretty confident I'm not the jerk, but now I don't know anymore. Not the jerk. Oh, heck no. I don't know what kind of neighborhood you moved into, but this is not okay. You are not the jerk, nor will you ever be. You have no obligation to watch anyone's kids except your own. The fact that you have none means that you are off the hook. I'm appalled that these people would even think such a thing. And because you're a lady, you should feel comfortable babysitting? What the heck? I don't blame you for losing your temper. The husband sounds like an insufferable jerk, and the fact that the chat is supporting it makes me think he has a following. I have to wonder if there are plenty that don't agree with this, but just don't want to get involved because they'll have to deal with him. Do not give into this madness. You don't owe anyone anything, especially free babysitting. Good Lord. Am I the jerk for calling my brother out on his lie about supposedly living in poverty? My parents had me, 29, male, young, so growing up, we lived in a bad neighborhood. And I mean like drive-bys almost daily, police always poking around, helicopters, never was allowed to play outside. And my parents struggled to make ends meet, so sometimes didn't even get proper meals. My dad got a better, high-paying job when I was around 7 or 8, and we moved to a way nicer neighborhood, and everything was different. By the time my brother was born, 21, male, we had a house with our own rooms in a more suburban area. Got to go to a private school, got a nanny and everything. Basically, was a different lifestyle from the one I had at first. My parents got me into therapy for some stuff I saw as a kid. Still suffer from PTSD, but not as severe from when I was a teen. They were never ashamed to tell them about the kind of life we had before, and I used to share stories about crazy stuff that happened to me when we got older. He's been going out with his girlfriend for almost 2 years, but we don't see her that often. She came over last weekend for brunch, and we were all just chatting. Conversation got to where I went to school as a kid, and she said something like, "Oh yeah, Devin told me how bad it got at that school." And I was thinking, what? Devin never went there? Then she was confused. Obviously, my brother was nervous. My dad asked some more stuff, like what else did he tell her? As it turns out, almost all the stuff I talked about to him that happened to me, he lied to her and said it happened to him, and I called him out right there. First of all, I was mad for him making up such pointless lies, but also for thinking it's okay to use my traumas for himself. I don't even get why. It's not cool to have experienced the things I have. Devin was super red, that I could tell. My dad was kind of scolding him too. His girlfriend looked really uncomfortable and like she couldn't believe why he'd tell her all that she actually cried for him when he told her about his horrible childhood. We were all pretty mad, so that whole thing ended quickly. My brother hasn't stopped saying crap. Dad and I are on the same page, but my mom really thinks I was a jerk because it was not the time and place to have that discussion. My brother says it was a bunch of harmless lies that I didn't need to point out at the moment, since now his girlfriend isn't happy with him. Yeah, he lied, I know, but was I the jerk for pointing it out when I did? Was just so mad it really didn't occur to me if it was the right moment to say something. Karen neighbor asks me to close my windows. I, 30 female, work from home. I also obviously live at home. I never have my curtains or blinds closed unless it's too sunny out or too hot. The issue. Recently, my neighbors approached me when I was outside taking out the trash and informed me that they were uncomfortable with being able to see into my windows and the fact that I can always see into theirs. I don't. Frankly, I could give a hoot about what my neighbors are doing. I'm either watching TV, working, or sleeping, or not at home. I just told them not to worry because I'm not looking anyways. They went on about my life and thought little more of it. A few weeks passed, and then my neighbors caught me outside again while I was walking home and they were washing their car. This time, they were much more abrasive, essentially telling me I needed to close my blinds from now on because they're tired of being uncomfortable with my windows always open. I again told them I don't pay attention to them and they're the ones constantly checking in. They can close their own blinds. Then they said that they stopped using their patio because they can see me working and they know I'm taking glances at them. I just laughed at them at that point and told them they're nowhere near as interesting as they think for me to waste my time looking at them. Petty, I know, but I didn't appreciate their attitude. This was a few days ago. I told some friends, and naturally some are on my side and others are telling me I'm creepy and I just need to close my blinds like a normal person. Now I'm second guessing myself and I'm looking to you, Reddit. I don't think I'm the jerk here, but maybe I'm biased towards myself and my own needs. So, am I the jerk? Edit, to note, as there's been some confusion about how the setup is. We're not in the same building. I live in a corner unit of my building. Very lucky, no neighbors above or below me in my building on the second floor. Directly across from me is another older apartment building with giant evergreen trees for privacy, like 50 to 75 feet tall. They're not the issue. The neighbors with the issue are beside that building to the left, so they have to look diagonally across the alley to look into my apartment. Not the jerk. Your neighbors are ridiculously paranoid. If they have such a problem with your blinds open, why don't they just close theirs? The current situation is only bothering them, so they should be the ones to come up with a solution. You're the jerk. We had a similar situation once when I caught my son using binoculars to look into the neighbor's window. Turned out he had a perfect view into their living room and was watching our neighbor do workout DVDs. I went over and explained the situation, hoping she would be reasonable, but of course she got an attitude with me. Fortunately, we have a great HOA, and after getting a warning letter, she now keeps her blinds shut most of the time. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you close your blinds to keep the neighbors happy or not? Please let us know.
I'd open them even more and wave at them every time I see them. You want creepy? I'll show you creepy.
Try to pile on more work to raise your bonus? Not gonna happen. I oversee a team of a dozen folks when it's fully staffed. We had a fellow move out of state for school, a lady retire to care for her grandkids when her daughter got sick, then 3 people promote up within the organization all within 4 weeks' time, so almost half the team suddenly became unavailable. While I'm involved in the recruiting and onboarding process, management up to 3 levels above me tends to be a bottleneck. Each time someone let me know that they're moving on, I informed management and gave them a running total. We're at 84% staffing, we're at 66% staffing, etc. Ads were placed, first round interviews conducted by me and a team lead. Second interviews recommended to the next level of management, and that's where the process suddenly stopped. For a week, then 2, then 3. It commonly takes 2 to 3 weeks after hire to bring a new person up to speed to start being productive, and perhaps 8 weeks for a new person to reach 90 to 95% of median productivity goals. The existing team was ready to pull together and work harder to keep up the work, but I took each one aside and coached them that the heavy workload they were under was not their problem to solve. Yes, customers were complaining. Yes, other groups in the organization were getting frustrated that our team wasn't getting things done in a timely fashion. I encouraged them to work efficiently and well, but to not put in extra unpaid time or contribute their own resources to projects. And if anyone was insistent in their complaints regarding the team's productivity, send them to me and I would explain the situation. Middle and upper manglement across the organization started vocalizing about how little work was getting done. When I played the Uno reverse card that, hey, all we need is adequate, well-trained staff and we'll be able to keep up, and managers 1, 2, and probably executive 1 all have potential interviewees on their desk for almost a month now, I started getting the stink eye from those folks. I found out later that one or a couple of these folks that I report to and were also the next rungs in the hiring ladder had proposed the idea that this team could run just as well a little leaner, so they arranged to find out. Oopsie daisy. Metrics indicated that organizational goals weren't met because of their decision, but I was able to provide the stats that proved that the team's individual goals were met, and that in many respects, per-person efficiencies were improved. My team members got their bonus, middle management failed to achieve, so no bonus for them that year. Reply: well done. Congrats on backing up and looking out for your team. 2 years ago, I was part of a team of 6. Then 2 were let go. Then another left for a new job. Then the lockdown and one was laid off. Then another hit her breaking point and left. By May, I was the only one left. I tried, but didn't run myself into the ground. Had a meltdown on my boss and got a substantial raise. Let a lot of things go as I prioritized my tasks. We're back up to 5 now, and the auditors are asking questions about why stuff wasn't done in the latter part of 2019 and early 2020. Oops. I bluntly told the auditors that we had a drastic staff decrease and I was not able to do the work of 6 people. They understood completely, but middle management is now scrambling to do all the missed work, and I got another raise because absolutely nothing in my job description was pinged by the auditors. Am I the jerk for ruining my boyfriend's favorite hiking trail? My 22 female boyfriend, 24 male, is an avid outdoorsman. He grew up camping and hiking often. I, on the other hand, did not. I think I went camping once when I was little and sat in my grandma's RV pouting the entire time. My boyfriend and I have now been dating for 6 months, and as our little anniversary present, my boyfriend wanted to take me to his favorite hiking spot. We live in a warmer state, so hiking this time of year isn't abnormal. I was a little nervous about it, but agreed because I definitely see him as the person I'm gonna marry, which means adapting to his lifestyle as well. So we went on a sunrise hike up a mountain that was a little over an hour away from us. The hike was just over 3 miles total and wasn't too difficult for beginners. Before going, my boyfriend gave me the safety rundown and pushed that I drink a ton of water. When we got to the trailhead, I needed to go to the bathroom slightly and mentioned to my boyfriend finding the bathroom at the beginning of the trailhead, which I believed to be just around the little hill. He brushed it off though and suggested we get going so we don't miss the most beautiful part of the sunrise, so I agreed. During the first half of the hike, my boyfriend kept pushing for me to drink water to the point where I felt like I was going to throw up and my bladder was going to explode. When we got to the best part of the hike, We sat there for a few minutes before I mentioned heading back down because at this point, I really needed to find that bathroom. My boyfriend insisted we stay for a few more minutes until I finally dragged him up. Listen, I've never peed outside my entire life, but I must have drank so much water, my bladder just couldn't take it. Before we even made it back down, I knew I was about to go. I kept mentioning it to my boyfriend and he kept comforting me, saying it was okay, saying I can make it. Unfortunately, I could not make it. I apologized profusely, but told him I had to duck behind a big rock a little ways off the trailhead or I was going to go on myself. He was angry, scoffed and huffed as I asked him to stand watch, but instead he just stood by the trail, angry as ever. And to make matters worse, an older couple that was cutting through some of the brush walked right by me but didn't say anything. So yeah, my boyfriend is understandably furious with me, not only for what I did, but also for rushing our beautiful view. This is his favorite hiking spot and I ruined it. I feel terrible, but I also feel like it was something that I couldn't control. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why can't he ever go back there? Was he banned for life because nature called while out in nature? Stuff like that happens all the time. If he wanted you to enjoy the hike, he should have made it enjoyable for you. And he also should have taken into consideration when you gotta go, you gotta go. He should have allowed you a minute to go prior to going on the trail when you said you had to go the first time. If that wasn't a possibility when you were up at the sunset viewing spot and really had to go, he should have helped you find a safe spot. Then you would not have had to rush back down. Of course you ducked behind a big rock and took care of business. That's what people do. If you were on the months-long, hundreds of miles-long Appalachian Trail, does he think they have porta potties stationed along the trail? Or do you hold it until you get to a tiny rural town scattered along it? What the heck is wrong with them? On shorter walks and hikes too, this is the norm. The older couple ignored you because they were sane and reasonable people and they were being discreet and polite, like your boyfriend should have been. Your boyfriend should have known better, pushing you to drink so much water so fast. He's being weird and controlling. This is just wrong. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that I make more than both my siblings when they told me to get a real job? I'm a nanny to 2 special needs kids. There's a very high demand for nannies for special needs kids because 3 special needs daycares in my country shut down. So I make approximately $120,000 a year and live in the family's guest house rent-free, and they bought me a car so I can drive the kids around. My parents have the belief that any job in childcare isn't a real job. They went so far as to call my aunt, she majored in child development, and had her tell me how broke she is when I said I wanted to major in early childhood education. Then they told me I could either pick an acceptable major or they wouldn't pay for my college. I cut contact with them for a while in college and we recently started talking again. I've been in contact with my siblings though. My parents recently asked about my job and education and were not happy when I said I'm a nanny and have my master's in special education. They made a comment that I'm working the same job that I've had since I was 15 and how I'll be broke forever. Then they told me to get a real job like my brother, an accountant, and my sister, a nurse. I was upset and told my parents that I make more than both my brother and sister and I don't have to pay rent, for car payments, or for gas. They hung up and I got a text from my sister saying I made her look bad to our parents. My brother said I should have just kept my mouth shut. Am I the jerk for telling my parents how much I make? Not the jerk. Your parents, quite roundly, are the jerks. Honestly, my jaw dropped when I saw $120,000. I've been working for 20 years, and that's a great living right there. Congratulations and well done to your good self. I can see why you dropped contact with your parents. Your siblings' responses really should have given them a reason to self-reflect on why they haven't done the same rather than throw shade on you. Not the jerk. You're an adult, and they're trying to control your choices. You've done well for yourself, and they should be proud. But no, they refuse to accept that you're doing what you want to do. You do make more than them, and you have a pretty great setup for yourself as well, so you did nothing wrong by telling them the truth. It may be time to cut them out again, because it seems they have no respect for you or your boundaries. New Army captain tries to end her career. I used to be an armorer in the US Army. I was the person in charge of securing and maintaining all the weapons. I was stationed overseas at a base that only had one arms room and I was the guy who ran it. So instead of just being responsible for the weapons in my unit, I was responsible for all the weapons in the entire post. On paper, that's a job that's supposed to be done by an E6 with a 2-person support staff. In reality, the position was chronically short-staffed. It was just me, as an E4, doing the job of 3 people. Because the position was critical to the operations of a bunch of different units, including things like PSYOPs and Special Forces, where everything about them is classified by default, and joint operations with the Navy and Air Force, and a few foreign militaries who were working with the US, I had to get a security clearance that was higher than everyone else in my own unit. As far as I knew, there were only 4 other people on the post with clearance high enough to do what I did, and they were all officers. This led to some amusing situations where I was accidentally called for security briefings that were way above my pay grade. That sucked because I was on call all the time and had to go to work anytime anyone needed a weapon. Being on call was supposed to be a duty rotation, but I was the only one who could do it, so I slept in the arms room a lot. I wanted to make sure I had as little to do as possible, so I got very good at my job. How good? During an Army-wide review of the entire supply chain, my post was found to be the best-run arms room in the entire Army. I won a medal and everything. Then we had a change in command, and the new captain hated that I didn't have to go on training exercises because I wasn't allowed to be more than 30 minutes away from the arms room ever. The compliance. The new captain had absolutely determined to take me on a training mission. She had somehow gotten it into her head that I was a slacker, which I absolutely was, but only because I was efficient and ticked off that I never got to leave the base. So she drew up a bunch of paperwork to sign the arms room over to the supply sergeant. I refused to sign because the person with all the ammo and the person with all the weapons are supposed to be different people. Next, she tried to sign the arms room over to the PSYOPs company commander. I refused to sign because that commander had become a friend of mine, so I knew he was required to leave the base weekly for security briefings. Finally, she tried to sign the arms room over to our company's supply lieutenant. I tried to explain that the lieutenant didn't have high enough security clearance, but she cut me off. She said she was tired of my excuses. Then she ordered me to sign and threatened me with an Article 15. I wrote, "under duress," on the paperwork. She didn't even look at the signature. So I sent an email to the warrant officer who was in charge of logistics for the area. He was the guy who'd given me the award I mentioned earlier, so he was ticked when he found out what was going on, and went on the crappy little weekend training exercise and basically enjoyed my vacation. That sequence of events happened on a Friday afternoon. The chief didn't get my email until Monday morning. On Monday afternoon, my captain was relieved of command. I eventually had to testify at her disciplinary hearing. My second favorite part of the whole experience was the supply lieutenant, who got a slap on the wrist for inadvertently obeying illegal orders because he hadn't learned the regulations before signing, saying, "Is it like that for you all the time? This has to change." My favorite part was the full bird colonel in charge of the hearing asking my former commander, "Your soldier was awarded for being the best at his job in the entire army. After he refused your orders the first few times, why didn't you start asking questions?" Edit. Some clarity about a bunch of questions I've been getting. This was at Camp High Lay. It doesn't exist anymore, but you can look it up to see all the different units that were there. They all use the same arms room, and yes, that's weird and it sucked. I had a top secret clearance. It was explained to me that knowing the weapons logistics of the whole post was a big deal. I had the training and deployment schedules of 24 units, including foreign militaries, other branches, and a security force group. That's a lot of important information, and it was definitely above my pay grade. I absolutely should not have been the person doing that job, but I was. I knew I needed to cover myself, which is why I was so careful about record keeping. There were probably more than 4 people with top secret clearance on the base. I only knew of 4. Unsurprisingly, none of them wanted to do my job and had the clout to say no when asked. I didn't actually go to any fancy security briefings. I was mistakenly called twice and promptly told to leave. I think the person scheduling the briefings just sent an email to everyone who had a top secret clearance. After the second time, I stopped getting them, so someone must have sorted it out. At the disciplinary hearing, I was called to answer questions. I showed up, answered, and was dismissed. It was a long drive to another base for 30 minutes of standing and talking. I don't know anything about the results. The captain didn't come back, that's all I know. The award that I won is called an RCOM. It's not uncommon. I wasn't some kind of indispensable prodigy. I was just in a job above my pay grade and scared of messing up, so I took very meticulous records. Because I was the only one doing anything, I had to really know the system, so I got an award for being good at passing an audit. Am I the jerk for asking my husband's cousin to let me take my baby, she just turned 3 months old, to her child-free wedding? Child-free weddings are becoming really popular here. So my husband's cousin and her fiance decided to have a child-free wedding, and I was okay with that decision because it's their wedding after all and they can do whatever they want. The problem is that the wedding will take place about 5 hours away from our house, so we have to spend a whole day away from our house, and therefore it will also be away from our kids. Therefore, 1, and the baby just turned 3 months old because they are not invited. And lately, my youngest daughter can't spend much time separated from me. I found out that I'm pregnant again recently, and I don't know why, but since then she wants to spend practically all day with me. Sometimes I can't even take a shower like a normal person because she cries until she runs out of air, which scares me because she's asthmatic. And she cries even when my husband is with her, and there's no way to calm her down. Well, a few days ago, she stayed at my in-laws' house for the night, and my mother-in-law said she was fine. But when I asked my 4-year-old daughter, she told me that the baby cried a lot, and there was no way to make her stop. So I was thinking about the wedding day, which is next Sunday, because we really want to attend. And I decided to ask my husband's cousin if I could take my baby with me on the wedding day, and I told her the truth, that lately she can't be separated from me, and that if I take her with me, she won't even notice her presence, because when my daughter is with me, she behaves really well. She hardly cries, doesn't throw any tantrums, and that she's still in that phase where she takes a few naps a day, as long as she's with me. If she is with another person, she can't even sleep more than a few minutes. And she was mad, because she said my baby will be fine spending only 1 day separated from me, and that I'm being dramatic and that she will be fine, and that she couldn't believe that I really asked her that because I know she doesn't like kids at all. I told her that if I couldn't take my baby, I wouldn't be able to attend, that only my husband would attend, and she told me if I don't attend, she would never speak to me again, because she wants me to be with her on her special day. But if my baby can't attend, then neither can I. She and her well-being are my priority, and even though I love his cousin, I love my daughter more. So, am I the jerk for asking if I can take her with me, even when I know she doesn't like kids at all? Edit. I offered to pay for the money she and her fiance spent on my plate, but she said she doesn't care because money is not a problem for her, but I'll pay for it anyway. And I told her that I will not attend a week before the wedding because it is a recent problem. A few weeks ago, my baby was fine, and she was not behaving like that, and that is not something that I can handle. Edit 2. Some of you are right. Asthma can't be detected at her age, but her pediatrician said the symptoms and attacks could certainly be asthma because a large part of my husband's family has it, including my husband, so she has more than an 80% chance to develop it. So for now, all we can do is be here for her and not let her cry until she runs out of air. Her pediatrician told me to do that. I'm not spoiling her, as some of you said. And I said throwing tantrums because those were the words of his cousin when she said that she didn't want kids at her wedding, and she doesn't understand that a newborn doesn't throw any tantrums. But it was easier to tell her that so that she could understand what I meant. I know perfectly well that a baby her age doesn't throw tantrums. Everyone sucks here. She has stated it is child-free, so you are the jerk for asking for an exception to that. Completely unacceptable. The only response is, unfortunately, I cannot attend, if you can't make arrangements. But she is also the jerk for saying she'll cut contact if you don't go. Anyone having a child-free wedding needs to accept that some won't attend due to their kids, and that's okay. She can't have it both ways, and certainly can't compel you to leave your kids. Edit from new information. My judgment hasn't changed because OP asked for an exception. If she had said, this is a new issue with my daughter, so I can't attend, or something to that effect, I would change my judgment. But asking for the exception is the issue that tips her, in my opinion. The bride is still a jerk for her response either way. Am I the jerk for financially supporting my brother's kids behind his back? A bit of context first. A few years ago, my nieces confided in me, their aunt, of how difficult their life is in their household. How they don't get things like the other kids and all the chores they have. As soon as my nieces turned 14, they expected them to get jobs, babysitting, working at their parents' restaurant, and pay rent. Not the same amount as regular rent, but each of them was expected to pay $100 a month, which I think is ridiculous and a completely unnecessary burden to place on kids, and also an unfair one since only my nieces are expected to live by this standard. While my brother, his wife, stepmom to my nieces, Don't put these expectations on their other kids. My brother and his wife are of the pull yourself by bootstraps mentality, but only with my nieces. The girls then told me that they were short on rent that month and asked if I could lend them money. I was completely upset, but they begged me not to talk to their dad as it would just make their lives more difficult. So I decided to give them 2 cards in my name and put monthly money into the account for them to pay rent, buy themselves the necessities, groceries, hygiene products, entertainment, clothes, etc., and I put them on my family phone plan. We kept all of this secret. They are now both 17 and will be going to college next year, which I will be paying for since my brother refused to support them. A few days ago, the girls got into an argument with their stepmom as she wanted them to share their car, which I got them as a birthday present, with the other kids, and it was a big one. Nieces said they'd call the police and report the car stolen if anyone other than them drove their car. My brother kicked them out and told them to move come morning if they were going to be that selfish. The girls called me and I drove down to pick them up. I guess while I was driving to them, the girls went all out and lost it on everyone, and a lot of harsh words were exchanged. They also told them that they never got jobs and that I paid for their rent and other needs, and that this would be the last time they ever spoke to them. When I arrived, my brother was livid and accused me of brainwashing his daughters against him. Then, the days that followed, my father and another brother called me to tell me that I'm a jerk for supporting the girls behind everyone's back, and that if I didn't interfere with the girls, they would have learned their lesson and been back at home by now. Karen gets evicted without a warning. I've evicted multiple guests from my property, but never had an issue with a noise complaint get to this point until tonight. Our cast is me, Nice Lady, and the Mega Karen. Phone rings, me. Front desk, this is Eat More Unicorns, how can I help you? Nice Lady. Hi, sorry to bother you, but we're trying to sleep, and the people next to us are talking really loud. Could you ask them to quiet down? Me. Of course, just give me a few minutes and I'll take care of it. If they don't quiet down within 15 minutes, call me back and let me know. Nice Lady. Thank you. She hangs up. I go down the hall and listen to see who it is, then go back to the front desk to make the call. Management doesn't want us knocking on doors at night. I call the room. Karen. Hello? Me. Hi, this is the front desk. I'm sorry to bother you, but I got a noise complaint and was just calling to ask you to… She interrupts me.
Ugh, seriously?
She hangs up. Well, forget me then, right? 20 minutes later. Nice Lady. Hi, sorry to bother you again, but they're still being really loud. Me. I'm sorry about that. I'll ask them again. Nice Lady. Thank you. She hangs up. I call the room again. Karen.
Hello?
Me. Hi, this is the front desk. She interrupts me again.
If you call again, I'm going to come down to the desk and kick your butt.
She hangs up. Oh, is that a threat? Guess it's time to call the police. I call the police and tell them what happened. They send someone down. Officer gets here, I tell them her room number, first floor right down the hall, so I can hear some of the things they're saying. The officers knock on the door and start talking to her. I'm not 100% sure what they said at that point, but I do hear her say,
"She's full of crap,"
and
"Why do I have to leave?"
Eventually she agrees to leave and comes storming into the lobby with all of her stuff saying,
"You better not try to charge me for the night."
She's been in-house for 7 hours already. She's getting charged. I smile and say that she can call the manager tomorrow and ask him about getting her money back. I already know that's not going to happen. Officers escort her out the door. I decide to call my manager and let him know what's happening. Manager laughs and confirms she won't be getting a refund and he'll deal with her tomorrow when she calls. I mean, technically she had warnings about quieting down, but I didn't warn her I was going to evict her. That's the first, and hopefully last, time I've ever evicted someone without telling them, you have 10 minutes to pack your stuff and leave before I call the police. Teacher gets exactly what she asked for when I turn on my camera. Background. I am currently in high school, and we have Zoom meetings in almost every class, every day for online school. I dislike it, especially having to have our cameras on. I get super self-conscious that anyone in the class could be looking at me, and I wouldn't know. A user in the comments pointed out that it could be paranoia, which I think it is. Being paranoid is the best way to describe the feeling. My English teacher, who we will call Miss Stevens, is super extroverted and loves to see her students. This is all fine and dandy, but she obsesses over it. She yells at kids all the time for not having their cameras on, as she wants to see you participating in the class. I personally don't think that students should have to invite their class into their personal life for a grade. After a while, she got fed up with people ignoring her demands, so she started docking points for the day's assignment if you didn't have your camera on. I joined a meeting recently without my camera on, as per usual, and I began working on the assignment. She stayed completely silent about my camera for some reason, which I loved for that class. I could work in peace. Later that evening, I get a notification on my phone that I got a 75 on today's assignment. This was terrible for me because it took my grade in her class down to a B, and I lost my 4.0 GPA. I emailed Miss Stevens and asked if it was a mistake or anything. She said something along the lines of,
I need to see you participating in the class, and because I couldn't, I felt it was necessary to deduct 25% from your grade.
I don't have the email right in front of me at the moment. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable turning my camera on, which I feel is totally reasonable. She gave me a hard no and said,
Nobody is watching you in class. They're watching me because I am the teacher. You will get used to it eventually.
I was upset. All I want is a little bit of privacy. Sure, not all of the kids stare, but we all have moments where we get lost staring. I decided I would turn my camera on, but I wanted her to regret it. I downloaded a super glitchy, flashy, bright, and disgusting glitch effect that I could put over my camera using a plugin for OBS that I found online. It lets you use OBS as your camera, so I could add whatever I wanted. The next day, I show up for the meeting and turn my camera on. A few minutes into the lesson, I turn on the glitch effect and lower the frame rate of my camera to make it look like I was just lagging. Miss Stevens asked what was happening, so I replied that I think my Wi-Fi is being slow or something. She moved on with the lesson, but you could tell that she was starting to get annoyed by this constant flashing on her screen while she was talking. There aren't enough kids in the class for her to simply put me on another page, and I don't think she knows how to turn my camera off herself. I began to enjoy seeing her reaction, so after I finished my assignment, I started messing around with it a little. I started flashing random things on my camera, like pictures of Shrek, memes, whatever came to my mind pretty much. She pulled me aside after class. Keep in mind, my camera still had the glitch effect going on, and she lectured me on how having my camera on like that was distracting, even though I finished my assignment after only 15 minutes or so. I just said, you wanted me to turn my camera on, so I did. You never told me what I had to have on my camera. She kind of rolled her eyes a little and just gave in. I don't have to have my camera on in that class anymore. She also apparently emailed my parents about me being distracting, and when I showed the plugin to my parents, they found it hilarious and didn't care all that much. I wasn't distracting any of the other students, and I was already done. No problems here. Edit. A lot of people in the comments are asking if my grade got fixed and if I contacted the principal. Both of these things happened, and I am sure my teacher got a talking to from the principal. My grade is fixed, and I'm back to having all A's. Karen gets kicked off campus. This semester, I got a new roommate, Claire, who is 19. Claire just moved to Los Angeles from out of state. Claire is very naive how Los Angeles works. She thinks she'll be famous soon. She also won't clean up after herself, and she makes everything into an argument. You have arms, you can pick things up if you don't like it there. She keeps saying things like,
When I'm famous, you will regret talking to me like that. I'm so glad that I won't have to worry about people like you in a few years.
I'm on a school scholarship, local, and I'm a black female. Our other roommate is Mia, Latina. I've been learning Spanish off and on my whole life, so I'm having Mia help me. One night I messed up a word, and it ended up meaning something completely different that's 100% I shouldn't have said. Mia and I erupt in giggles as she's trying to correct me. Then we started saying stupid, inappropriate things like trying to come up with puns. Claire comes in and yells that,
You need to stop talking about me.
I replied that, we're making stupid jokes. If anything, I'm making fun of myself and my awful Spanish. Claire said,
Why would you want to learn Spanish anyway?
I say, the city is called Los Angeles, and there's a large Spanish-speaking population. I want to communicate with all of my coworkers. Many places hire bilinguals. Claire goes on a tirade about how we make her feel like an outsider in her own dorm and her own country. Next, Claire goes,
Maybe Mia should go back to where she's from.
Mia loses her crap and tells Claire she was born in the valley. Maybe it's time Claire goes back to where she's from, and that's not Los Angeles. Claire starts crying and Mia leaves the campus. Mia files a complaint against Claire for what she said. I was asked to make a statement to our university backing up that Claire's microaggressive towards us. When Claire came back from her vacation, she was told she was being suspended from campus and her living arrangements were revoked. Mia and I had to leave the area while Claire packed with campus security. Now, Claire is blowing up her Instagram feed, telling everyone she was targeted. Her friends are saying awful things about Mia, myself, and Los Angeles in general. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Claire? Please let us know.
Maybe Claire can go back to where she's from. There's a special highway that she can use to get there, according to that AC/DC song.
Am I the jerk for telling my boss no to working weekends? I got hired for this salaried job where they really hyped up the work-life balance and reasonable hours in the job interview. Like the way they never expect people to stay late or work on weekends or holidays. That turned out to be BS. My boss got my personal phone number off my resume from when I applied, and after not long, he was blowing up my phone on nights and weekends asking me to come to work. I'd always not answer. Then when he'd ask on Monday why I wasn't answering my phone, I'd pull out my work phone like, "Sorry, are you sure you had the right number? I'm not seeing any missed calls." And he'd often say he called my own cell, so I'd say that I don't really use it much. I leave it home a lot, and when I do check it, I've usually got like 40 missed calls, and my voicemail is always full, so I probably miss stuff unless I'm expecting a call at a certain time. And that if he needs to reach me, he should try my work phone, because I'm very careful to follow up on any call to that within 1 business day. He asked me how he could reach me outside of 9 to 5 because he sees I leave my work phone on my desk at night and over the weekend. I said that honestly, I'm not glued to any phone on the weekend, so if he needs me to take a call on the weekend, could he make it a meeting request and put it on my calendar so I know to be available? Or if I know I won't be available to take a call, I can suggest an alternate time to call. He said that wasn't really gonna work for him. More often, things come up last minute, and when he calls people on the weekend, it wasn't planned, and that he's not calling for a teleconference meeting, he's calling asking people to come in. I said that on the weekends, I usually have commitments that were made 1 to 3 weeks out, and I'm not often able to cancel a previous commitment with under a day notice. So if he needs me in on a weekend, it would be best if he could schedule that 3 weeks out so that I know not to make conflicting plans. He said that wasn't possible, and I said okay. He could try and reach out, and I'd answer the phone if I heard it ringing. But I wasn't always on the phone, so I might not catch it always. Anyways, I've gone back to ignoring his calls, and my coworkers have gotten kind of frustrated with me, saying that coming in on weekends is part of the job, and that I wasn't pulling my weight. I said that I don't know what job they signed up on, but in my job interview, I was promised regular hours and took my pay based on regular hours. So I'm working regular hours. My coworkers got frustrated and said that if everyone did what I was doing, nothing would get done. I said maybe nothing should get done then, if it's coming at the cost of y'all not being home for dinner with the family. I don't really think my coworkers see it as an option to say no, so they're angry at me because I'm doing it and they're not comfortable doing it. Am I the jerk for not working evenings or weekends? Not the jerk, but be prepared to be fired soon. Your coworkers and boss are going to be looking for any reason to get you in trouble, and if you are on probation, expect to be let go. I know it sucks, but that's the way these companies' bootlickers work. Good on you for standing your ground, and shame on your company for lying to you about the job. Not the jerk. Wasn't a stated requirement, and your boss hasn't even formalized a schedule to adhere to. You don't have to be on call all weekend because something might come up unless it's specifically enumerated part of your job and comes with some form of compensation. Your coworkers are just upset you had the guts to say no to a bad organization. Weekends and overtime should be utilized as catch-up time if needed. If an organization cannot survive without this time, then something needs to change in the organization. You're the jerk. My business employs about 150 people. We treat them very well, and in return expect them to do the same. The moment someone complains about working weekends, we get rid of them. This isn't the local burger joint, we're a financial group. If I can't count on you to be a team player, maybe you should be buffing my Lexus. Sorry kids, your mommy is a liar. On the maternal side of my family, I have a cousin who is an entitled parent. Admittedly, I don't see her very often because her parents got divorced when she was a kid and her mom always got her for the holidays, so she didn't really feel connected to our family, which is fine and valid. But she lied to us a lot when she was an adult that she would come and never did, and it kinda hurt everyone inside a bit, especially my grandmother. But every time I do see her now, it's a bit of a nightmare. The last time I saw her was in 2019 at our grandfather's memorial, where she showed up 3 hours late in casual clothes. It was a semi-formal event that were covered in stains and dog fur. And the first thing she did was approach our newly widowed grandmother and ask her for money. So yeah, she's not a great person, but since her mom is raising her kids, they're super sweet. Anyway, during 2021, my paternal grandfather passed, and when he first got sick, he and my grandmother decided to give myself, siblings, and cousins our inheritance because they didn't want it to get lost between fighting if it were to be sorted out after they passed. My aunt, Dad's sis, is also an entitled parent, but this ain't about her for once. We were each given 50,000 Canadian dollars. My brothers and I immediately put the money into tax-free savings account and savings accounts because there's only so much money that you're legally allowed to put in TFSAs. One thing about the money, we told no one. Only our immediate paternal family knew, and we weren't going to tell anyone else because people get weird about money. My maternal side of the family has been fixing up our old family cottage, and one of my brothers is in the trades and doing well for himself. So he decided to buy a used boat off Kijiji with the inheritance money from his savings and then quickly replaced it. Our maternal side was told about and shown the boat, and we just told them he got the money from the trades. Well, my paternal grandmother let it slip about the inheritance to my maternal grandmother, who accidentally mentioned it to one of my poorer uncles. He makes poor financial decisions, and he told the rest of the family. He pouted a bit, but overall, no one asked us for money and understood why we didn't tell them. Since we're not getting together for Christmas this year, we were having a video call to chat and wish happy holidays before we all got busy, and my maternal cousin was there, much to everyone's surprise. Not even 5 minutes into the video call, this conversation happens. Cousin:
All right, boys, what do you want to say to your auntie?
Kids: Thank you for taking us to Disney. Me, who isn't even planning on going anywhere near the US with a 10-foot pole. What are you talking about? Cousin:
You're paying for us to go to Disney.
Me: No, I'm not. Where did you hear that? Kid 1: Mommy said that you'd send us to Disney because Grandma gave you lots of money. My cousin, who had a very smug look on her face and clearly knew what she was doing, and that no one, least of all I, had said anything of the sort.
Yup, and we're so grateful because Grandma didn't give us any money, so thank you.
Me, who's 100% done with this and all the pain she's caused my family. Sorry, kids, your mommy is a liar. I'm not sending anyone to Disney. She lied to you. And the money I got was from my other grandma because my grandpa got sick and passed. It's not from this side of the family. I'm sorry that your mommy lied to you. She shouldn't have done that. It was wrong. She owes you an apology. Everyone on the call was just frozen. And then it erupted. Her kids started yelling at her. Why would you lie? And that was so mean. And my personal favorite, are you lying about other stuff? Probably, kiddos, probably. She looked so angry and betrayed on camera, and my relatives started chiming in, but there were too many voices, so I said bye and left the call. My mom called me. I live in a different province for uni, and said what I did was uncalled for, but I pointed out that because of her, there was no way for me to leave that conversation without looking like the bad guy, because I was absolutely not using my money to give her a free vacation, and that she had lied too much to our family and directly caused us a lot of pain, and it was probably for the best that her kids caught on quick. She just said that what I did was uncalled for and hung up. But then I started getting texts from other relatives in the call, and everyone except for the broke uncle who's always complaining about his poor financial decisions was on my side, because she had hurt them too. My grandma called to thank me because the only reason my cousin comes around anymore is for money, and it's very hurtful. My cousin was texting mean things at me until I blocked her. Then I start getting messages from her mother because her kids were getting so unruly from this betrayal that she just ditched the kids with her mom until her mom could get them calmed down. Like, how entitled do you have to be? She demands a free trip and then ditches her kids the moment she has to parent. Edit. I want to clarify a few things. 1. This cousin and I are not close. Before this video call, I hadn't seen or spoken to her since 2019 at our grandfather's memorial, and before that in 2011. Going low contact or no contact just aren't necessary because we don't talk in the first place. 2. My mom wasn't mad at me. She thought I could have handled the situation better and perhaps not been so blunt when I knew her kids were there, because I may now have caused lasting damage to their relationship in which she's worried about the kids and not my cousin. But overall, she did think that what I said was funny and that my cousin was an entitled jerk for what she did, and she's pushing for my cousin to be banned from the renovated family cottage. 3. Thanks so much to those who were reassuring me that I'm not the jerk in this situation. But don't worry, I already knew that. She created the situation herself and is responsible for the outcome. To be honest, the main reason I posted here was to rant, and because I thought that people in this sub would appreciate the outcome. 4. My paternal family is not rich. We're a blue-collar family on that side, whereas my maternal family is upper middle class, or middle class because of poor financial decisions. My grandparents got the money because older relatives had passed before him and had no other family except for either my paternal grandmother or paternal grandfather, so their estates went to my paternal grandparents. Now on to an update. It isn't major because it hasn't even been 12 hours since the call, but the broke uncle I mentioned before, who's broke just because of his own poor decision making. He called me privately to try and guilt me into paying for a Disney trip for him and his family. That would be him. His wife, who although lovely, comes from a very wealthy family from a different country and goes on 6 to 12 vacations or cruises a year. His 2 sons, who are 1,000 times more entitled than he is and are hex spawns, and his stepdaughter. I immediately said no. That's my money. I'm using it for what my grandfather intended me to, university and or traveling. I also pointed out that my uncle works in tech and makes at least $300K a year. His current contract is $380K. He and his wife just went to Dubai, and that I am a full-time university student only doing odd jobs and relying on savings from a previous job. He, by all logic, should be in a much better financial position than me, and if he isn't, that's really not my fault. He pouted, but I told him that if he ever brought it up again, I'd tell the rest of the family he asked. Everyone's mad at him because he never seems to have any money, but he has the highest paying job. So they would absolutely chew him out if they found out he asked me. And my cousin picked up her kids from her mom's house, but her mom found out the reason the kids were so upset, ripped her a new one, and made her call me to apologize. Overall, it's been a pretty successful day. Am I the jerk for borrowing some money from my wife's savings account? My wife and I have joined finances, but she has a savings account her grandpa set up for her before he passed. It's around $40,000 in savings. We both work IT jobs and get paid fairly well. I want to note that we do not live in America, so wages differ. She stated to me that that money is for either an emergency or in case we plan on buying our own house. She said that in case I need money for an emergency, I'm allowed to use it. I also have access to the account, but so far I haven't used any. 2 months ago, my sister asked me to lend her $5,000 because she wanted to pay for her wedding dress, but her card had expired and kept declining. I lent her $5,000, but since I didn't have the full amount of my own paycheck, I borrowed money from my wife's savings. My sister said she'd pay me back once her new card was ready, which would take less than 2 days. I didn't tell my wife this because I'd replaced the money in 2 days. It's been 2 months now, and my sister is putting off on giving me back the money she borrowed. She keeps finding excuses on why she couldn't give it back every time. My wife hasn't checked the savings account in ages, but what if she happens to check, and if she figures out that $5,000 is missing? My best friend says I am honest with her, and I should accept the consequences of my own actions for not notifying my wife and not letting her know about the money missing. Am I the jerk? I feel very guilty for this, and for trusting my sister. You're the jerk. Buying a luxurious wedding dress isn't an emergency in the slightest. Your wife trusted you and granted you access to her account, whereas you betrayed her trust unamended. You know that what you did is amiss, and that is why you don't tell her. I don't comprehend why you didn't ask her at first if it's okay to lend your sister the money. If she thinks that's a justified cause, she would consent to this. But I guess she wouldn't lend her the money, and that is why your sister turned to you, and you hid it from your wife. You have to tell her ASAP and hope for the best. If she notices it before you tell her, it will escalate the situation. I think she'll discover it either way, even if you transfer the money before she notices, because there's a documentation of transactions in the account. Acknowledge your mistakes and prepare to be denied access to the account. You're the jerk. I'd divorce you over this. A wedding dress is not an emergency. Your sister's card wasn't expired. It declined because she couldn't afford the dress, couldn't afford to pay you back. This isn't a card issue, but a living beyond her means problem. Honestly, you either need to demand the money back from your sister with her selling the dress and then payment plan you the rest, or you tell your wife and see if she wants to take your sister to small claims court for the money. Either way, you messed up big time. This was not an emergency. Your sister had no intention of paying you back and never will. Not the jerk. You have a huge heart and you sound like a great man. Please don't let these people on Reddit get to you. Most of them have no idea what the word kindness actually means. They are trapped in darkness, and I wish mercy upon their souls. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk for stealing $5,000 from his wife's savings account and giving it to his sister, or not? Please let us know.
If you did something like this, Reddit boy, you'd need a new head.
Am I the jerk for asking my wife to pick me up from the airport? Background. I took a job in Idaho and have been living away from my wife and daughter, who live in Atlanta, since July. My wife is staying in Atlanta for the time being until my daughter's school is over and the apartment lease is up. Now, I'm coming home for Christmas and my flight leaves at 7 a.m. on the 21st. My wife refuses to pick me up from the airport and told me to get an Uber. She says that me asking her to pick me up is selfish on my part, and she was embarrassed to tell her friends that I even asked. She says that, as the man, I have to take care of my family and shouldn't ask her to pick me up, that I have to find my own way home. Further stating that a normal husband would not do this. She goes on to explain that the drive to the airport is too far. My flight arrives too early, she has too many things to do, and can't be expected to wake our 6-year-old daughter up this early just to drive to pick me up from the airport. I should also point out that an Uber, or any rideshare, from the Atlanta airport to my home is going to cost $60 minimum. I've always grown up thinking that you do anything for family, including picking them up from the airport. But she's making it sound like I'm in the wrong for asking. But I don't feel like I'm in the wrong, because this is the kind of thing that you should do for your family. And I can't understand her point of view. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to pick me up from the airport? Edit. More details based on comments. My wife is not working on that particular day, and my daughter is not in school. The airport is 38 miles from my home. Also, this should have been mentioned earlier. She nor I am paying for my ticket. I had to borrow money from my father, so it's my Christmas present now, to afford to go. Why? Because she didn't want us to spend money on the ticket. My job is full-time, her job is part-time. We can afford the ticket, but she told me not to pay for it with our joint bank account. So that is primarily why 7 a.m. is the best flight I could get, particularly on the week of Christmas. Additionally, throughout our marriage, she has told me many times how her friends' husbands are more successful than me and how much money they make. I took this job in Idaho because it paid more than being a substitute teacher, which is what I was doing at the time, and it was a great move for my career. So when she says she's embarrassed to tell her friends that I asked her, it stems from her measuring me to other husbands, who I guess could afford not to rely on family. My job is great, but I still have 2 connecting flights, and it's a red-eye. So not exactly luxury, and not up to her standards. I will also point out that my wife does not like to drive. She turned down a bank job because it was a 20-minute commute from our home, while I was driving 45 minutes to an hour to my job at the time, 7 days a week. Yes, in my industry, 7 days a week is pretty normal. So to clarify based on what I'm reading, she does not want to drive a long distance to pick me up. It's not about her routine or waking our daughter, it's the inconvenience of having to drive that far. And to clarify this, they live in Duluth, Johns Creek, so we're not near the airport by any stretch. And I'm willing to drive the way back. I'm not going to make her drive back and forth. Not the jerk for asking, but listen, your wife is effectively a single parent whilst you work so far away. It's also the holiday season and she has to worry about setting everything up, shopping, groceries, cooking for Christmas, etc. She might be feeling unsupported and snapped out at you for adding to her plate. When you get home, check in on her and make sure she's coping okay. Everyone sucks here. This is such a minor thing, but it's also probably emblematic of the larger problems in the relationship. I get that you want to have a convenient ride and see your family first thing after working far away and being alone. I also get that your wife doesn't want to at 5 a.m. wake the kid up and drive to get you when she spent months functioning like a single parent and is also tired. Neither of you is acting with much compassion or understanding for the other person here. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
I'm a lot nicer than I used to be. But bruh, your wife sounds like a total…
Should I give my babies normal names? I'm 24, female, and my fiance is 27, male. We're currently expecting twin boys after trying for a year. We've never been more happy. My family are non-religious, and his are practicing Catholics. He is not. I'm 7 months along, and his family are asking what we're thinking of naming them. We've already decided on their names, Phoenix Gray and Griffin Dean. We've never been ones for the run-of-the-mill names. My name is out of the ordinary, and my fiance goes by his middle name, Cassius. The idea of calling our kids, not that these names are wrong or bad, Daniel or Thomas or Samuel, doesn't sit right with us. It isn't us. My in-laws are furious. 1, because they're not traditional names. 2, do not bear any affiliation to family members. My fiance is named after his grandfather. His sister is named after his aunt, etc. And 3, because they're mythical creatures from other cultures. That is apparently what they dislike the most. But we really love the names. We already have a girl's name picked out too, Valkyrie Lee, to pay homage to my Danish grandparents that cared for me when I was a teen. We actually came up with this name before I even got pregnant. We like that all the names match and that they are powerful beings that can fly. We want to make our kids feel powerful too. My father-in-law says to use them as middle names and give them family names as first names, but we are already in love with the full names we've given them. We've even started calling them by them and bought embroidered blankets and clothes. As these are the first babies for both families, my mother-in-law thinks I'm being selfish by not giving them traditional family names and that not doing so will set a bad precedent for the others. Am I being too stubborn? Edit. People are being bullied for all kinds of reasons. Hair, eyes, glasses, braces, style, foot size, ears, biting fingernails, makeup, no makeup. Being called Phoenix or Griffin may not be as common as Sophie or Max, but they're not bully-worthy. Also, I didn't ask if you like the names, just about the concept. Don't judge us by American standards because we're not American. Many people with all 3 of these names have messaged me privately, and I'm sure I'm not the jerk now. Thank you for all of the nice and respectful people. No need to give your opinions now. Everyone sucks here. Please at least give your kids normal middle names that they can switch to if they prefer. Valkyrie has some really negative undertones to me as a European. It does not connote power or strength in any positive way. On the other hand, your in-laws need to stop complaining. It's not their decision, and family names are not something that should be forced onto the next generation. Not the jerk. Your kids, your choice. I have an exceptionally unique name, and to be honest, I've hated it all my life. My parents chose it out of love, but it's been a pain to manage. No one can spell it, and I was bullied mercilessly for it. Edit. I'm also incredibly easy to track online because of how unique my name is, which isn't something my parents realized would be an issue as I was born before the internet became so big. So you should definitely choose names you love, with no input from anyone else, but please also consider the impact on your kid down the line. Am I the jerk for laughing after my sister implied my brother's girlfriend's dish wasn't good at Thanksgiving? I, 27 female, and my brother John, 26 male, are very close, so I was definitely shocked when he surprised us on Thanksgiving by bringing his new girlfriend, Chelsea. He was very happy though, and to be honest, that's the only thing we want for him. So we, grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, held off on all questions until another time. Anyway, dinner time rolls around and we're sharing everything, and my aunt kind of pulls me off to the side and tells me we're not going to be eating my mashed potatoes because Chelsea brought some and John asked that we serve those. I was a little peeved, not gonna lie, because I've done the mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving since I was 16, but I got over it pretty fast. I really didn't care as long as they were good. Spoiler alert, they were not. Everything that could have gone wrong with those potatoes went wrong. They were raisins. She was really excited though, so when she asked everybody if they were good, she got some mm-hmms. You know, the kind you do with your mouth closed and an uncomfortable smile on your face. Everything else was good, so her dish was highlighted. We all thought we passed it though, until my nephew spit it out into a tissue. She said something about not pleasing everybody to lighten the mood because we were all looking at him hard as heck, and my brother went, "I'm sure they're glad to have a break from your potatoes anyway." And then they laughed. I wasn't gonna say anything, but my sister, 22, female, said, "We are not." in the most monotone voice, and I just laughed. Man, like one burst of a cackle. Chelsea teared up, and the rest of the night was awkward. My brother called me a jerk and is still mad at me. Am I the jerk? Edit. My sister and I both apologized, although I just said, I'm really sorry, and my sister did more. Not the jerk. Your brother is the jerk here. He set her up. He should have told the family he was bringing someone to dinner. He knew that you make mashed potatoes every year. He saw those raisins, and then he made that comment about your dish. Your brother set her up. You laughing at your sister's comment is a result of your brother being dumb. If it's the first time you bring a new girlfriend, you don't have her make a dish. If she really needed to cook something, it should have been discussed with the family beforehand, not as a surprise. You're better than me, because I would have refused raisin potatoes and snuck my own potatoes out. Regular from my work thinks I work everywhere, apparently. Sorry for how long this is, but I literally still think about this all of the time, mostly because I still see this woman and she pretends like this never happened. I live in a fairly big city, so it's kind of unfortunate that I keep bumping into this woman who I have to say I'm not too fond of. I work in a gift/curiosity shop. Think candles and tarot cards and fancy overpriced bars of soap. In an older, affluent neighborhood in my city. Customer X comes into the gift shop quite regularly and always has a million questions and is the kind of customer that no matter how busy you are, demands all of the attention beyond her. Now, our shop is fairly small, so literally everywhere you turn, there's this woman. Fine, whatever. She's kind of rude, but manageable, and she always spends a decent amount of money. Now, it's important to note that Customer X has a small dog. We'll call this dog Pickles. That is the cutest dog. The second Customer X enters the store, she drops Pickles' leash and goes about her business, leaving Pickles to do whatever Pickles' little heart desires. Sometimes it's just come and sit next to me and get pets. Sometimes it's not. Again, it's not a big store. It doesn't really matter. Pickles can't really get into too much trouble. I like the dog. Flashed forward to our I don't work here story. One day I'm shopping at a well-known clothing store, the kind with levels and elevators, a real unit of a clothing store, clear across the city. While I'm looking at some sweaters, I feel a cold little nose press up against my leg, and when I look down, guess who I see? You got it. It was Pickles, tail wagging, leash trailing behind him. Customer X nowhere to be seen. I think to myself, I know this dog. I don't really want to bump into Customer X. I'm certain she will recognize me. We have interacted multiple times at this point, but Pickles is old, and this was a big store. So I scooped the dog up and I set off to find Customer X. After too much searching, it turns out Customer X was on a completely other level than we were, meaning either A, this old Springer Spaniel somehow went up 2 escalators by herself, or B, this woman straight up does not give a hoot and left her dog on a random floor of a clothing store. Who does that? I tried to say a friendly hello to Customer X, something along the lines of, "Hey, I was shopping and I recognized your dog." And before I could even remind her where she knew me from and that it's not weird I brought her dog, Customer X hits me with,
Do you have this shirt in another size? I hate this color. Why don't you have any different styles of this pant?
I was so taken back by what I can only describe as the audacity of this jerk that I could only muster a polite, "I actually don't work here. I work at the other store." To which she responded,
Well, can you go ask somebody for a different size?
I was more than happy to say no. I think my Karen girlfriend is using me for money. Background. I, 23 male, currently financially support my girlfriend, 23 female. I give her some of my 2-week paychecks, usually to either pay her $800 rent for an apartment I had to co-sign for due to her being unemployed. I give her $400 to cover her car note, of which it currently is in need of mechanical checkup, which I told her I will cover the costs of her repairs, seeing as it's her only way to get a job. I ask her every day if she's okay and doing well. I call at least once a day. I'm attentive. She randomly asks for money. I'll send some her way. She asks for a lot from me. I only ask for quality time, cuddling, movie nights, etc. I am aware of the whole conundrum of what this relationship is. Don't focus on why I should leave. I'm well aware. I simply just want a measurement of if I'm the jerk with what comes next. She calls me tonight and asks if I can watch her 3-year-old son at around 10:30 p.m. She's going to go out with her female cousin. I say I'm willing to babysit as long as she comes home by 3 a.m. to spend the night with me because I love her. Give and take. She doesn't agree to a set time complains that I don't give her enough space, even though I don't live with her, and says she basically wants me to leave when she gets home. That hurt, feeling unwanted, so I said I would pass. She proceeds to block me on everything. So considering how much effort I put into her and how much I care for her, am I the jerk for saying no? I know she's struggling every day with no money. She has a 3-year-old, while I sit at my parents' house chilling. I want her to be happy, but my happiness matters too. I thought I wasn't being selfish by asking her to spend time with me in exchange, and I passed because she wasn't up to doing that. Am I the jerk? Did I deserve to get treated like that after all that I do for her? I get to say no, right? OP, this makes me sad. I can see how much you love her, but I'm sorry to say I don't think she loves you back as much as you do. You are doing a ton for her, financially and emotionally, and she has the guts to ask you to babysit her kid, but ask you to leave when she gets home? She does not love you, and I'm so sorry to say that, but that's not love, and you deserve so much better. You're clearly a good guy. Go find yourself a girl who's fun and nice and treats you how you deserve. Not the jerk, but your girlfriend is a major jerk. There's no excuses for her being a jerk, no matter what situation she's in. And do not feel guilty about leaving her if you decide to do so. It's not your responsibility to care for her if she does not care for you. Everyone sucks here. She is using you. You know she is, but then get mad that she is. You know what this relationship is. Either do every single thing she asks without question or break up with her. I'm sure you can find a more accommodating gold digger with less baggage to help you spend your parents' money. You're the jerk. Judge me all you want, but I'm in the same position she is. I'm 22, have a toddler and a 6-month-old, and I'm unemployed and not looking for a job. Parents cut contact with me and call me lazy, but they don't understand how much I struggle with my mental health. Right now, I have a couple of boyfriends who help me get by. The unemployment I receive is literally next to nothing. I don't let my boyfriends find out about each other because of course they will cut me off. I feel bad for your girlfriend because you're over here complaining and being controlling. You have to spend the night with me because I'm babysitting for you? What kind of crap is that? If you love her half as much as you claim to, then shut up and just support her like a good boyfriend should. You have no idea how hard it is for girls like us just to survive this day and age. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
I think jerk would be an understatement for that girl.
Am I the jerk for wanting my wife's son to leave the house after he turns 18? My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and she has a 17-year-old son from a previous relationship. The father left her and her son about a decade ago and has not been present in their lives ever since. I know it was a difficult experience for both of them, and they have a very tight bond as a result. My wife is on permanent disability and doesn't work, so I am the sole breadwinner in the household. I've always tried to be a very present figure in my stepson's life, but I also understand that I am not his father. For the past 3 years or so, her son has been having a lot of behavioral issues. When it started, my wife and I thought it was typical teenager acting out type stuff. But when his behavior continued over the course of months and into a year, we knew we had to take more action. We attended family therapy, got him individual therapy and counseling, worked with the school counselor, tried getting him involved in extracurricular activities, etc. We put a lot of time, effort, and money into as many ideas as we could think of, hoping that something would click. But nothing has worked. His grades in school are near failing, and he is at risk of not graduating next year. He will refuse to leave his room for days at a time. He has zero respect for me as a person, let alone a parent figure. He fights us on attending therapy and counseling sessions and will not participate when we get him there. I am at my wit's end. And I'm also starting to feel the hurt financially because my insurance doesn't cover all of the therapy and counseling. My wife's disability checks take some of the edge off, but I am hemorrhaging money at this point and falling behind on bills. My stepson turns 18 in a couple months, and I'm at a point where I want to stop paying for his therapy and counseling. I'm also at a point where I no longer want him in my house at the end of the next school year. After a recent outburst from him, I broke down to my wife and told her all of this. She was unaware of the financial problems because I didn't want her to feel that her son is a burden on us. But as hard as it is to say it, he kind of is. Out of anger and frustration, I told my wife my feelings about wanting him to leave our house, and she flipped out on me. She accused me of giving up on him and basically being okay with him becoming homeless. She said she would never forgive me if I abandoned him like his father did, and that I was the jerk for even thinking something like that, let alone telling her. It's been a huge rift between us since then, and it's put a huge damper on the holidays. A part of me wants to get this all out in the open since I think my stepson deserves to know what kind of a strain he's putting on all of us. But my wife insists on being protective of him. I feel like no matter what, I'm going to be the bad guy. But I also feel like I have done all that I can do. Am I the jerk for wanting to quit supporting my stepson? Not the jerk. You're doing everything you can to help your stepson. Unfortunately, you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. While he is a minor and you have the authority to do so, have you considered inpatient help? I would suggest being honest with him. His behavior is unacceptable, and he either changes or leaves. You will pay for this therapy as long as he tries to help himself get better. This may cost you your marriage, but if you do not draw this line, you will be having this same conversation in 10 years. Everyone sucks here, but I also think you're mostly not the jerk. Kicking him out, unless to inpatient treatment, isn't going to solve his problems, only yours. It'll basically be the end of the relationship as well. Your wife has blinders on and is equating getting him inpatient help as abandoning him, and that will be their downfall as well because she'll become his enabler. Your wife being the enabler will drag you down as you are the financial backing of this family. From his point of view, I was working out a lot of trauma I didn't understand as a teen, and my stepfather and mother kicked me out and our relationship never recovered. I haven't actually spoken to her since I was in my mid-20s, almost a decade now. She's done to me. It's a really complicated situation you're in. Do you want to sync with your wife and her son? Could you tell her that as long as he isn't trying to get himself help, you're not going to waste the money and time either? Would you be okay closing the book on these relationships and going out on your own and letting them figure it out? Again, all complicated. No one is going to win. Not the jerk. This is why you don't marry single moms. All of my buddies who have had to deal with this kind of crap too. Her kid is never going to love you, and she will never love you anywhere close to the way she loves her spawn. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
He stuck around longer than I would have, I can tell you that much.
Should I put my phone down when someone is trying to talk to me? I work 12-hour shifts and get 2 20-minute breaks. Sometimes during a break, I'll sit and chat with friends I work with. But if none of them are on break, then I sit in a secluded area and go on my phone while I eat my lunch. I feel like my break time is the little personal time I get during the day to decompress a bit. We can't leave the plant, but I still feel like I should be able to do what I want with it. If I want to sit and stare at a wall, that's my prerogative. We're also not allowed to have phones on us when we go on the plant floor, so it's the only time I get to make calls or check texts. There's this guy I'll call Tom. I've been assigned the same machine as him a couple times, and working with him is brutal. I'm always more exhausted after a day of working with him than I normally am. He just talks and talks and talks about everything, but nothing really at all, if that makes sense. Yesterday, my weekend on, I was on break. Nobody I talked to was working, so I found a little 2-person table by the wall and ate my sandwich and went on Reddit. Most of the break room was empty. Then Tom came in, sat down across from me, and started babbling about work, production times, and what needed to be done. I was just responding with, and and was still on my phone because I didn't feel like talking to him and I was hoping he'd take a hint. So he brings up football instead, asked if I was checking the score. I said no, that I didn't like football.
Why not?
I just don't.
I never met a guy that didn't like football.
Interesting. Then he says,
You should really put your phone down when someone's trying to talk to you. It's rude.
I said, I only get 40 minutes of break per day. Don't tell me what to do with them. It's bad enough we can't leave the plant, so being on my phone is how I like spending my break. He said,
Well, break time is supposed to be for getting to know your coworkers. You don't have to be a jerk about it. No wonder you sit by yourself.
Then he got up and moved. I told my girlfriend after work, and she thinks the guy is probably lonely and looking for a friend, that I could have been nice to him for 20 minutes instead of basically telling him to go away. I feel like just because we work together doesn't make us friends. I'm there to get a paycheck. I don't want to move up or anything. And who wants to talk about work while they're on break? I have a feeling if I did it once, then he'd keep bothering me on every break. Am I the jerk for refusing to put my phone down when someone was trying to talk to me? I'm gonna say not the jerk. He's not entitled to your break time. Yeah, it might be rude of you, but you were just hoping he'd take the hint. When he didn't, you didn't make it about him. Just how you prefer to spend your break. He can be upset all he wants. It's really not that unreasonable or uncommon to have no interest in spending your personal time with the same people you have to spend your work time with. Not the jerk. Break time is not for getting to know your coworkers. It's a break for you to spend it however it suits you. He probably is lonely, but he still needs to accept your boundaries. Tell him you want to use the time to meditate, and his brain will probably explode. If he doesn't know any guys who don't like football, doubt he knows a lot who are into meditation. You're the jerk. You know what the problem is with your generation? You millennials and Gen Zs would rather be messing around on your darn cell phone than getting to know your coworkers. Then you complain about depression and anxiety. Well, gee, maybe it's because all you do is play video games, watch Netflix, and mess around on your phones. Back in my day, we actually socialized. We didn't get participation trophies, and we weren't told we were special just because we exist. No wonder you kids don't have any confidence, and you all expect free handouts. Edit. I'm a retired brigadier general. I worked my butt off for everything I have, but you can call me privileged all you want if it helps you sleep better at night. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for not putting his phone down when the coworker's trying to talk to him or not? Please let us know.
That last comment, though, that's a boomer if I've ever seen one.
Am I the jerk for locking my fridge after my brother let his daughter eat my peppers? I know I sound like I'm making something out of nothing from the title, but let me explain. I love eating bell peppers. I always get a few to snack on while I work. This may sound weird, but they're one of my favorite foods. My brother is staying with me for a few weeks. His wife is away for a work trip, and we live close to each other, so he can come over to my house for a few weeks so I can be there with his daughter while he works. He works nights sometimes, and he doesn't want to leave her alone in case something happens. I keep a lot of my snacks in a mini fridge in a small hallway/closet between my office and an empty bedroom. It keeps them away from where people could find them and closer to my office than the actual fridge down a flight of stairs, so if I'm working, I can easily get to them. The door to the other side is always closed, so I guess it didn't even occur to me that if someone opened the door from the bedroom my brother was staying in, then they would find the mini fridge. Anyway, I had to run out today to do some errands while my brother was with his daughter. He texted me after I had been out for a while and said, "Where did you get these peppers? They're really good. Even Lily likes them." I was upset, I'll admit. I really like those. I just responded, "I just get them from the store. In the future, could you please ask before eating food from my personal fridge? The downstairs one is fine, but the food in the mini fridge is meant for me." He said sure. I was already out, so I bought another pepper and a lock for the fridge. When I got home, I set everything on the counter. My brother asked what the lock was for, and I told him it's for the fridge. He got offended and said I basically was saying I didn't trust him and that he was dishonest. I told him I just wanted to make sure his daughter didn't take anything, especially since now she knows where it is, and I'm fairly certain there's stuff in there she can't eat because of allergies. He still said I was being rude by locking it and implying he was going to steal my food. Now I'm wondering if I was overreacting and if I should have just not gotten it. Am I the jerk? Edit. I guess I should have included her age. My niece is 4, so I'm not positive if she comes across the fridge and is able to get into it, she won't. Yeesh, this was completely valid up to the lock. They made an honest mistake. You set a boundary, they agreed, and you still bought a lock. If you had made the boundary and it happened again, then you have an argument, but this sounds completely harmless. It wasn't an expensive or rare item, it was a pepper. Don't put the lock on, OP, just keep to the boundary you have set already and go from there. ETA, as comment posted before edits. If niece has allergies, then a child lock for safety would be very reasonable to prevent harm. Locking the fridge to avoid pepper theft after agreed boundaries in place would be jerk behavior. Taking into account potential harm issue, going to go very soft, you're the jerk, as the original post reflected only the pepper theft issue being the reason, and on that instance, I stand by the original comment. Not the jerk. He and his daughter ate your food without your permission. He can't definitely assure you that his daughter won't be interested now and go after food in the mini fridge again. I especially am concerned about the food that she may be allergic to as well. You shouldn't have to move it from where it's easily accessible to you because he messed up. I definitely don't blame the girl. Your brother was being quite rude, and I don't really see this as an overreaction. I understand why he feels like it is, because he doesn't get that it was a violation of your privacy and trust, and you're concerned for his daughter, but he needs to realize that he can't overstep boundaries in your home. You're the jerk. Not buying the allergy defense. That seems thrown in as a way to make yourself look better. If the allergies were the problem, why wasn't that the first thing you said to your brother? OMG, niece got into the mini fridge? Did she eat any of the allergy food? This is about your peppers, which is extremely petty. I don't understand these posts where people have guests over, then get weird about food. It's food. They're not going through your valuables while you sleep. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for putting a lock on her mini fridge or not? Please let us know.
I'd double down and put 2 locks on it.
Am I the jerk for not changing my daughter's birthday to be not vegan? So first, a little background. I found out at a very young age, around 3 months, that my youngest daughter is allergic to dairy and eggs. After a bunch of testing, it was determined that she can't have dairy or eggs in any form, not even cooked or baked. On to the issue. Her first birthday is next weekend. From the get-go, I wanted her birthday to be completely safe for her, as in all food, drink, desserts, etc. will be egg and dairy free. We have spent so much time figuring out what she was allergic to and avoiding it. I wanted to have one day where we do not have to monitor everything she ate. And of course, being a baby, she tends to grab for anything she wants. So having no allergens at all means I don't have to worry if one of our other kids, who are 6 or 3, leave their food in her reach. This is becoming a problem now because my husband doesn't want to have only vegan food because he says him and his side of the family won't eat it. I wasn't planning on anything too out there. My mom volunteered to make her homemade veggie soup, and I was going to make a chocolate cake and frosting. The only difference between normal cakes and frosting and the one I'm making is applesauce instead of eggs and oat milk instead of cow's milk. My nephews on my husband's side won't eat the soup at all, I guess, and neither will their parents. The boys, I think, would have liked the cake, but as soon as my in-laws discovered it was vegan, they said they won't eat vegan food, and neither will their kids. My husband wants to just do pizza and normal cake because it's what they like. I don't understand the point of having a birthday meal that the birthday kid can't even eat. I didn't think it was too much to ask to have one day that is catered to my daughter when she's going to have to spend the rest of her life working around everyone else. Am I the jerk? ETA. I have no problem making foods including meat and have already told everyone this. I tend to just default to saying vegan food instead of egg-free and dairy-free just because it's faster, which is my bad. I found a few options of food that do contain meat that are still allergen-free that I hope will make everyone happy. One more edit. I didn't realize that soup would be considered so weird. We live in California, but my family and I were all born and raised in Germany. Where we are from, it's not unusual to have soup for a dinner. Not the jerk. This isn't your family's birthday, it's your daughter's. Their behavior is just another example of me first. It's appalling that they don't put her safety above food preferences. Why can't they eat before the party? My niece has food allergies that require desperate rushes to the ER before they could all be identified. Mushrooms, shellfish, strawberries, eggs, peanuts. Poor dear. She's 8, and all of these products are still not used at all in any family home she goes to the day of arrival. Family get-togethers don't include any of the foods. We love her more than we love any food. Perhaps ask your husband which he could see a future without, a healthy daughter or his favorite foods. Even if her allergies are not yet deadly, it only takes one exposure to change that, and there is no warning as to which exposure it will be. No phones allowed at work. Tell them to call me directly. I work in healthcare, where phones are not to be used while on the floor caring for patients, etc., for privacy and WHS reasons, which is fine and understandable. Most of us have our phones on us or in the break room and don't use them unless on break or away from patient care areas. None of us check our phones while busy, and if they do, we'll always get called out for it by other staff. We were all recently in a meeting where we were told we are no longer allowed to have our phones on us, as it is a distraction and against policy, meaning not to be used unless we are out of the unit or off hospital grounds. A few people piped up and said they had kids in care, where their phone was the direct communication for the carers, Or there are issues at home that they needed to have their phone to have quick contact if needed, even if it was left in their handbag and could be checked on breaks. Not only that, but we have a half-hour unpaid lunch break where we should be able to use our phones as we see fit. But this was also denied as it's still in a healthcare setting and could cause WHS issues. Now I know working in healthcare and personal mobile phones don't mix, as it really is against policy. However, the issue with denying us complete access was a total overreaction. The issues with requiring quick and direct contact with home or other outside work contacts was brushed off, and we were told if the issue were that bad at home, we shouldn't be at work. Many people were a bit taken aback by this, saying a lot of the home issues are resolved by a quick text back, and not allowing us access to our phones while at work was a bit unreasonable. Our manager said if that is the case, we can give people her direct work number and for contact to go through her, and she will relay the messages to us or give the phone to us to talk to whoever is calling. So, cue malicious compliance. We all gave our at-home, spouses, carers, schools, etc. the direct work line to call for any reason if they're unable to get in contact with us directly, and the phone started ringing continuously. First was a lady whose husband needed approval for a big financial decision at home. The next was a vet calling to tell a coworker their dog needed to be put down. I got a call from my children's daycare saying my son had been bitten, mandatory reporting policy. There were several other phone calls within the span of a few hours with my manager running to find us to relay messages or pull us off the floor so we could speak to the callers, wasting more time than if we were allowed to shoot through a quick text or take a quick phone call while on our breaks. The next day, we were told we could have access to our phones while on break and to please tell our home contacts to stop calling the manager's phone. It took a few days for everyone to get the message, meaning there were still many unnecessary calls coming through, but it made it obvious that the need for communication lines to be open at home was important. Am I the jerk for choosing my pregnant wife over my mom? Some backstory. My mom was a traditional helicopter mom growing up, and even though I'm almost 30, continue to struggle with control issues and not having as much of a say in my life as she used to, and struggles that she is not my go-to person anymore. 6 years ago, me and my wife got together, and once it became serious, I started to put our relationship as a priority. My mom expresses disdain for my wife, and for my attention being on my wife and not on her. She gets upset that I use vacation time to spend with my wife rather than for family vacations, would constantly complain that I don't visit home enough, etc. It has been very difficult on my wife throughout our relationship to feel like my parents don't approve of her or our relationship. When I told my parents I was going to propose, they tried to sabotage it and told me I was too young. When we bought our first house, they told me we were making a mistake. When we made the decision to move to another state, we were met with a lot of guilt for abandoning the family. And in general, we have not gotten a lot of support from my family, specifically my mom, when making big decisions. Me and my wife found out she's pregnant a couple of months ago and decided to wait until she was 12 weeks along to tell friends and family. We told her parents first, and that took a lot out of her. They reacted well, but it was emotionally exhausting, and she had a rough first trimester, so she just didn't have a lot of energy in general. We were obviously planning on telling my family shortly after, and my wife expressed concern about their lack of support for big life decisions and said she didn't know if she had it in her to be a part of telling my parents. She also doesn't like being the center of attention, so being pregnant has been difficult in that sense as well. After talking about it for a bit, I decided to do a family FaceTime call with my parents and siblings to tell them the good news. They reacted fine, but weren't as excited as my wife's parents. My wife was napping when I told them. Now my mom is telling me she's upset that we didn't tell them in person and that my wife wasn't a part of the conversation. I explained that my wife was having a rough time and felt uncomfortable with that, so I was going to do whatever made her the most comfortable. She is my priority. My mom is insisting that her own needs are just as important in this scenario and that I should have been more considerate and should have known it would upset her to hear the news over FaceTime. She also insinuated that my wife steamrolled me in this scenario and that I shouldn't just defer to her when making decisions. I tried to explain that my wife asking this of me was not steamrolling me and that I made the decision to do this based on her comfort. Am I the jerk for putting my wife's concerns and comfort over my mom's feelings? Not the jerk. Your mother doesn't have any needs when it comes to your wife's pregnancy. She has wants, and she needs to grow up and realize it's time for her to be nothing more than a spectator in your life now. That's what parenting is. Eventually, you're just a spectator. Not the jerk. Your mother is a narcissist through and through. I'm sorry you've had to deal with that. I've been there. Your wife and child should be your first priority, as it seems no matter what, she does not support you making your own decisions. I really hope you're able to set boundaries or just completely disengage from her. I wish you, your wife, and your future child all the best. Don't like our slow gas pumps? Take your business someplace else. This happened many years ago at the company I currently work for. At the time, we had about 130 company vehicles at our location and our own fuel pumps. Our location is a few miles outside of town. There was one small privately owned gas station within 100 yards of our company. It received a lot of our business because while we did not get gas there, our employees would stop in the morning, lunch, and after work to pick things up. Their breakfast business was very strong. One of the owners was very rude. She would tell us to hurry up and pick what we wanted, but for the most part, they were okay. There was a change in the law on below-ground fuel pumps, and we found out that we could no longer provide our own fuel to company vehicles. As a result, we made a deal with this small gas station to provide all the fuel for our company. Right away, it was a nightmare. They only had 4 regular pumps and 1 diesel pump. While the regular cars could fuel up at different times, our large trucks would bottle up bad in the morning at the one pump. So we sat down with them and requested they install a fast diesel pump designed for larger trucks. I was actually in on that meeting. The wife just laughed at us. She said there was no way in heck she would pay for that, and if we did not like it, we could just take our business elsewhere. In her mind, we did not have a lot of options, and even if we did, she would still have all our breakfast, lunch, and after-work business. Cue compliance. So we did. We did not want a repeat of what was happening at this location, so we supplied all employees with a COM data card so they could get fuel any place they wanted. This hurt that business more than anyone could have realized. With our employees now stopping at the locations of their choice, they no longer needed to stop to pick up snacks, drinks, or food at this store. Their morning, lunch, and after-work business evaporated. 3 months later, they came to our company to let us know they would now install the new pump. We told them it was too late. I still remember after we said no, the angry matey got mad again and started losing it. 1 month after that, just the husband came by and asked if there was anything he could do to get our business back. We had signed a contract and it was actually saving us money, so we said no. They closed the store about a year after that and tried to sell the location for $1 million. It sat for years until it finally went for about $100,000 to a veterinary clinic. Am I the jerk for not giving a high school ex closure? I dated a guy in high school, almost 25 years ago, for about 6 months. As far as high school relationships go, it was relatively serious, and I can't remember the exact reason I broke up with him. Normal teenager stuff, probably. But it was definitely the right call, as he became vaguely stalkerish afterwards. Calls after being told not to contact me anymore. Gifts dropped off at my doorstep. Threats to my next boyfriend many months later, etc. This behavior went on, intermittently, for longer than our relationship actually lasted, and ended after he graduated the following year. It was creepy and weird and made me feel very unsettled. However, I haven't thought about this guy in years until a mutual friend posted some high school photos on Facebook a few months ago and tagged everyone in them. I was sort of taken aback by the photo, so clearly I still feel unsettled by the situation all these years later. A couple of days ago, my ex reached out on Facebook Messenger with a lengthy message about his life now. Married, has a kid, saying that the Facebook photo highlighted the fact that I still consume a lot of his thoughts. Seeing his name in my inbox made my guts churn, and I'm extra creeped out because it sounds like he's been obsessing over the end of our relationship since our friend posted that picture months ago. Evidently, his therapist has suggested he attempt to gain some closure by contacting me and asking for an explanation of why I cut him off so completely. I don't think it's my responsibility to explain anything and presumably absolve this guy of his behavior. And I think his therapist is crap for suggesting he gain closure by contacting me, rather than giving him the tools to accept that not every situation gives people the closure they want. I ignored the original message, but received another one today saying that he needs to hear from me so he can get closure and move on. Am I the jerk for ignoring him? Or should I be helping this guy with his mental health by giving him the closure he says he needs? I don't think I'm the jerk here, but my husband and best friend think I might be, because what harm comes from giving him closure? ETA. Okay, messages received loud and clear. I'm going to block without engaging at all. I owe him nothing, and while I feel for him if he's actually struggling, I'd prefer to look like the jerk, despite the overwhelming comments that I'm not, rather than give him the thin edge of the wedge to engage further. Thank you for your comments and well wishes. If you don't like it, sue me. Okay. So a bit of background. I was a dumb college kid and in a mixer met the cousin of a classmate. We hit it off, started seeing each other, and when the red flag started going up, was looking for a way out. Except we weren't as careful as we should have been, and she wound up getting pregnant. Was not super excited about the news, but figured I had to take responsibility and at least try to make it work. Stuck with her throughout her pregnancy, was there when my kid was born, would wake up at ungodly hours to feed and change her, but still, the writing was on the wall. Things came to a head, and I finally told her I could not take it anymore. I'd happily take responsibility for my kid, but no way in heck was I spending any more of my time with her. She took it about as well as one could expect, and I didn't see my kid for a few months. All this while I was working 12 to 36-hour shifts. I just gave zero hoots. Got a lawyer involved, got a child support agreement in writing, could see my kid on the one weekend off a month I got. That was that. Years go by, kid grows, I change jobs, but we still adhere to the old agreement. Except that when mom gets mad or is in a bad mood, she won't bring my kid, or starts just spewing crap through messages, and at first I took it, but as the years went on, it started to get really old and really annoying. So my kid is now 5 and lockdown hits, and the mom starts saying how she's not gonna bring my kid because of the risk, and I agree. Except, I eventually found out she's taking her out to parties and playdates and stuff, so it's not so much about her not exposing my kid as it is to me not seeing my kid. I confront her, argument ensues, and she says those magic words.
I'm not taking her,
My kid.
to see you, and if you don't like it, sue me.
Okay then. I get a lawyer who specializes in family matters, and even though in my country it is very difficult to gain custody from the mother, I have a pretty strong case. Mind you, at this point, I didn't want full custody, since her maternal grandparents obviously loved and cared very much for her, and she cared for them, and I had no intention of putting her through that, but it could be used as a leverage point. So we go ahead with the custody battle, and her mom just absolutely loses her crap, telling me, how could I do this? Why am I not thinking about our kid? To which I just reply with a screenshot of her telling me to sue her. So during the time that the custody battle goes on, my kid is remanded to my care, and her mother cannot take her or visit. And let me tell you all, those months were great. Our relationship definitely got stronger. Got to teach her the alphabet. Yes, she did not know it when I saw her. Got to show her my musical tastes, some heavy metal stuff, which is something she would have never been exposed to. It was great. The hearings were dragging on, and even though there were screenshots and proof that showed what a horrible mom she was, my lawyer told me it was not likely to go my way. But we got to leverage that for a better, ironclad agreement, and decided to not prolong it further. Apparently, custody battles can go on for months or upwards of a year. So now, instead of once a month, I see her every other week, plus school vacations, plus holidays. She lives in a different city 3 hours away, so seeing her more often was not feasible. Plus, guaranteed video calls, plus being informed of anything that goes on with her, such as doctor, dentist, school. Now my kid and I share stuff with each other that we did not do before, and she's much more excited to spend time with me. As for her mother, she is much more civil now, takes great care of what she does and says, and I doubt will dare me to do anything ever again. Edit, just to give some more info. Her mother would be emotionally manipulative, along the lines of she went 2 days without saying a word to me because of something, even though our apartment was tiny. Nothing along the lines of unfaithfulness or trying to pin a pregnancy on me, though it did cross my mind. I don't really care about blood relations since I am very much my parents' son and cannot stand either of them and am not on speaking terms with either of them. So blood ties don't mean much to me, and that's also why I had no help from them in this situation. And as much as I would have loved to have more custody, my work schedule just did not allow it. I would literally fall asleep with her in my arms after being at work for 36 hours with 2 to 3 hours of sleep max. It was a rough time to be sure, but absolutely no regrets. Reply. A slightly similar situation when I went through a messy divorce, through mediation, and it was agreed to a 50-50 split of my daughter. I'm a firm believer a child should have equal access to both parents. Anyways, just before my ex and I were about to sign the dotted line, she was moving out of the family home the coming weekend. My ex decided that as a father, I shouldn't be allowed 50-50. Instead, access should be every other weekend, and I should pay child support. She came up with this plan, having spoken to her half-wit sister, who did the same thing with her husband. He was happy to take the back seat. I'm a very hands-on and involved father, always had been. This conversation happened in the car and is something I will always remember. Conversation went a little like this. X.
I've been thinking about the child arrangements, and I don't think 50-50 is fair.
Me. Oh? X.
Yeah, I think it should be more like a 70-30 split. Or better still, 80-20.
Me. Really? I'm surprised you would want that, but I'm sure it's for the best. X looked rather happy, surprised but happy. Me. So, how do you want to have your 20%? X.
What? No, I wouldn't have it for 20. You would. You've got this the wrong way around.
Me. No, you have. I've agreed to 50-50 because that's how it should be. If you dare try to mess me about at this stage, then it will not end well for any of us. X.
She's my daughter, and mums have more rights.
Me. Then I will do everything I can to get full custody. It will get nasty, you and I will never speak again, and I will use every penny I have, every penny my family has, to fight for full custody. I'll use your health, mental health, inability to provide a clean and safe environment, everything and anything I can to get full custody. We will end up hating each other, and it will be her who will suffer as a result. X.
I just don't see why you should be allowed 50-50 when most men don't want it.
Me. Ask yourself this. You are leaving the family home. Do I have to allow you to take my daughter? X.
She's my daughter.
Me. She's also mine, but you have no legal right to take her. I can refuse, and then you will have to fight for access. X. After a pause, she said,
Let's stick to 50-50.
In the 6 years since that day, we have kept to more or less 50-50. It tends to work out that my daughter spends more time with me, closer to 60-40, and it works out well for her and I. Fight the good fight, brother. My stalker invited himself to my birthday dinner. I, female 27, met this person, male 32, in 2019 in a bar in our hometown. He's a friend of a close friend and was soon to be joining the armed forces and leaving for basic training. He asked me out and we went out on one date. I wasn't feeling it and gently told him this, as one of his parents had just passed at the time and I was being mindful of his feelings. I've made it pretty clear now on several different occasions via text, Messenger, Snapchat, WhatsApp. He added me on them all, and if he doesn't get an answer on one app, he will try the next until I reply. He's now on home leave for the holidays for the next few weeks, which falls over my birthday. I had planned a night with my close friends, one of which is the mutual friend we have in common. He asked me to go to dinner via Snapchat, and the conversation went like this. Him. Do you want to grab dinner when I'm home? Me. I don't think that's a good idea. Thanks for the offer though. Him. Just as friends? Me. Look, I'm finishing my current job on Thursday next week. I have my birthday dinner on the Friday and start my new job on the Monday, so I don't have much free time, I'm afraid. Him. Where are you going? Me. Ironically, the bar that we first met in. Him. Aw, is mutual friend going? Me. Yep, pretty sure he said he's coming. Him. Great, I'll see you there. Me. Speechless. Him. If that's okay with you. Me. Well, the table is booked for 6 people, and there's 6 already going, so there's not any room left for dinner. Him. You'll be done by 2030, so I'll be down then. I pretty much was stumped and completely missed the trap I just walked into. I'm 100% sure he wouldn't see this as a friendly thing and will spend the night trying to flirt with me, which makes me really uncomfortable. I'm not attracted to this person. I hardly know him or speak to him. I never reach out first, but am polite in my replies and rejections. But he's just not gotten the hint and has expressed that I'll change my mind. I know my own mind, and it's made up. He calls me pet names, which from people I don't know, I absolutely abhor. It makes me want to crawl out of my skin and set it on fire. My question is, would I be the jerk if I told him not to come? Or is it too late now, and I'll just have to risk him showing up and making me uncomfortable? This is making me so anxious, it's keeping me up at night, so I'm turning to my favorite subreddit for some help. Am I the jerk? ETA. A few people have suggested that I've been saying soft no's to this dude. On each of the 4 occasions he's asked me to hang out one-on-one, I've said a hard no. Examples: dinners, a drive, hotel, and a trip to the Christmas markets in another town. I've said I'm not interested in dating anyone, which is absolutely true. I'm at a fantastic place in my career, starting my dream job in 9 days, which I didn't think I'd get before I was 30. I have a fabulous family, brilliant friends, and my pup, who's like my doggy daughter. I absolutely have no interest in adding a man to my life. Since this happened, he has found my Tinder profile, which goes unused, sent me a screenshot of my profile picture with a comment of, "Nice profile," which I replied, "Thanks." He then said, "Welcome, sugar." I then called him out and told him it's insulting to call me a pet name and to just stop because he's been told several times not to do it. He was very offended and then asked how I was getting on with Tinder. I just don't want to cause any awkwardness with our mutual friend because he and I are very close. ETA 2. Thank you everyone for your comments, advice, and time. I've sent this dude a cease and desist message and been as blunt as I can possibly be. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to change the venue, as getting a table for a large party this close to Christmas was hard in November. It's impossible now. We live in a relatively small town. The nearest city is about 45 minutes away by public transport, and it's a nightmare to get home after midnight. I've also had a long conversation with our mutual friend, and he understands that I really feel uncomfortable with his advances and knows to reiterate the uninvitation of this dude if he reaches out to him. It might not stop him from appearing, but if he does, the bouncer and bar staff will be my first port of call, so I can leave early if need be. I'll be ticked off, but at least I have a bailout plan. ETA 3. I received a response about 10 minutes ago, which read, "Hey, whatever, I'm seeing someone anyway," and then, "Delete my number." 1. I never saved it in the first place, my dude. 2. If you're seeing someone, why are you asking me to dinner? What the heck? Dude is a field of red flags, and I'm happy it's over with now. Hopefully there won't need to be an update, and I can enjoy my birthday in peace. Thank you to everyone who reached out, commented, and awarded. You're all very kind. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he acts like a needy 5-year-old? I've been applying for jobs recently. This morning, my boyfriend, Ian, was still sleeping and my phone rang. It was one of the jobs that I applied for, and they asked if I had a minute to talk. I said sure and went in my office and shut the door. I had been in my living room anyways, but noise carries more from the living room and I was trying to be quiet. Well, right after I closed my office door, Ian got up and I heard him walking around. Then he opened the door and came in. He asked, "Who is that?" "Oh, is that your mom? Tell her hi." I was still talking to the HR person, and he said, "Is that Mary? Who is that?" I got up and waved my arm, trying to wave him away, while still trying to answer the HR person's questions, and went back in the living room. He followed me and said, "Is that Kim? Ask if her and Kyle want to go for lunch with us later." So I went in the kitchen instead. He followed me again and started unloading the dishwasher. I started walking back to my office, and the HR lady said she wanted me to come in for an interview Thursday at 1. So I said, "Thursday at 1 works great." While she was explaining how to get there, get in the building and everything, Ian comes running up and says, No, not Thursday, today. I work Thursday." I thanked her and hung up. I was annoyed. I said, "That was about a job, that wasn't Kim. You're worse than a nosy 5-year-old that needs attention." He said, "Well, you could have just told me who it was." I said, "Yeah, in the middle of a call, I'll say, 'Hold on, my boyfriend wants to know who I'm talking to.'" He said, "Well, you could have wrote it down or something. I was just curious. I get up and you're already on the phone. Sorry, you don't have to be mean about it." He's done this crap before, and it's annoying. So I just stayed in my office, and I've been checking emails and messing around. I'm just irritated because if that HR person heard him, I would have looked unprofessional, and he was disrupting my concentration. I have ADHD, and made it harder for me to focus on what she was saying. Maybe I shouldn't have snapped like that, and I'm overreacting. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Set boundaries. But my whole question is, why in the world do you put up with that behavior? I would snap if someone was following me around trying to figure out who I'm talking to and it's about work. How does him working affect when you can go for an interview? OP. He thought it was some friends of ours and I was meeting them for lunch. Not sure why he thought that, but... Reply. Are you sure he actually thought that? Some people try to exert control over their partners by sabotaging things like job interviews. OP. I'm trying not to think he'd do that. He's made some comments about must be nice to get off weekends because he has to work, and he asked why I'm applying for jobs when my job is good enough. But I just sort of figured he wanted me to just be happy where I am, like he is with his job. Reply: red flags. Repair shop won't take credit card. This happened about 20 years ago. I lived about 40 miles away from my office and did the daily commute. Several people at the office did the same thing. I usually worked 7 to 4 just so I could skip the bulk of rush hour traffic. I don't remember exactly how or what happened, but basically after work one day, my minivan decided to quit working. Best I can remember, it was acting weird, some kind of transmission problem, and just quit going. Luckily, this happened between my office and the interstate ramp. Everything else with the van was fine, no engine problems, etc. It was only about 5 years old at that time, and I never had any trouble with it. I deduced it was a transmission problem. Everything runs fine, it just decided to not go anywhere when put in gear. Picked a transmission shop out of the phone book that was not too far away and had it towed up there. Waited around while they took a look at it and said yeah, they could fix it. Don't remember exact quote, but it was probably somewhere around $800 to $1,000 for the job. Okay, I don't have that much cash in the bank, but that's what credit cards are for. They've got the van, I'm stuck. What else am I going to do? They wouldn't take me 40 miles home, but they would give me a ride locally. I had them drop me off at a motel near my office so I could at least walk to work the next day. I got a ride home with a guy from work that day and then carpool a day or so until the van was fixed. Couple days after I drop it off, the shop calls and I go to pick up the van after work. Shop owner gets in the car with me while I give it a test drive. It goes, but yuck, making noise, still not right. So I tell him to try again. This is getting to be a hassle. Another day, another carpool. Next day, get the call. Come pick it up. Okay, drives fine. No noise. Sounds like you got it fixed. Pull out the credit card, and owner is like, we don't take credit cards. Cash or check only. Well, I don't have my checkbook with me. I don't say I don't have the cash. Ring the office and catch a ride home again with one of the guys working late. Malicious compliance part. I don't have the money to pay the shop, but I do have my latest credit card bill, the one with a little check attached to the bottom of it. I just fill out one of those, take it to the guy the next day, he accepts it, and I get my van back. Here's the fun part. I get a call from the guy later, and he's telling me the bank won't cash the check. They tell him it's from a credit card company, and he can only deposit it. But he doesn't want to do that because he's overdrawn at the bank. Asks me again if I have cash, and I tell him I already gave him a check. He's complaining to me he's overdrawn at the bank, and they'll take that out of his deposit. Not my problem, dude. Sweet revenge for all the hassle. Edit for more info. Back then, my credit card bill would always include 3 checks in the envelope. I think they were actually attached to the bottom of the statement at one time. Had my name and account number printed on them, you could use them just like checks, except the charge went onto the credit card. Am I the jerk for being angry at my son for pawning a family heirloom? My father was a captain for Pan American World Airlines. In the early 60s, he purchased a Rolex GMT Master through a company program. This gives it official Pan Am provenance, which is very important to its value. I'll get to that later. An Air Force reservist, he was called up to serve in Vietnam. Before he was due to ship out, my mother secretly took the watch off his nightstand and had it engraved at a local jeweler. Fly safe, come home, love, her name. He actually thought he had lost the watch until she surprised him with it a few days later. She wanted it to be a good luck charm during his war service. Family lore says that it was, as the one time Dad says he forgot to wear the watch, he had a very close call with a surface-to-air missile. He wore the watch every day thereafter, taking it all over the world until I got engaged. Before my wedding, he took me aside and said that since I was starting a family, I would need all the luck I could get and gave me the watch. I got married wearing it. You can see it in several of my wedding photos. Before he passed, my father asked me to continue the tradition and give the watch to my son for his 21st birthday. He didn't want me to wait until he got married. Kids take longer to get hitched these days. I want to make it clear how big a responsibility and gift this is. When I went to insure the watch, I had to buy a separate policy to my homeowner's insurance, and it was appraised at $100,000. Anyway, I gave him the watch on his 21st birthday. I told him to be careful where he wore it, but to wear it to job interviews, on dates, etc., as a good luck charm as his grandpa would have wanted, and to treasure it. I never brought up the value except to tell him that if he needed help covering any insurance premiums, that wouldn't be a problem, and that he should insure it ASAP. A week ago, 6 months after I gave him the watch, I found out he sold it to a pawn shop for $11,000. That's the market value of like a newish GMT Master with no history. He explained to me, only after the fact, that despite the fact that his grandfather's trust and me and his mom paid for his education, he had racked up $8,000 in credit card debt while at school and was going through a Dave Ramsey program to get rid of his debt. He said he didn't feel right owning a luxury item like a Rolex while having that debt, and he felt it was only right to sell it and get out of debt. I told him that while he was still my son, I would never forgive him for selling a part of our family history, and to make matters worse, selling it for a fraction of its value and basically getting ripped off. I told him not to expect any further financial support, which is ironic since if he had just been honest about the debt, I would have happily helped him pay it down. He isn't speaking to me, and my wife has taken his side. We almost never fight, and she called me a jerk since he didn't know better and was just trying to be responsible. Not the jerk. That was priceless, and he threw it away. It's ironic your wife said he was trying to be responsible, as pawning off a precious family heirloom to pay off debt is anything but responsible. The responsible thing to do would have been to be honest with you and even ask for help. That is a huge part of maturing and growing up, knowing when to ask for help, and he proved just how immature and irresponsible he was. You're the jerk. Heirlooms are nice and all, but from a purely pragmatic standpoint, the kid can do whatever he wants with that watch. If he used it to pay off credit card debt, more power to him. He's 21, he made some mistakes, and did what he did to get out of it. If you withheld the fact that it was $100,000, then that was on you. You're the jerk. It's 2021. Who even cares about Rolex watches? Your father wore it back in the day? Big whoop. Your son did the right thing by selling it to someone stupid enough to buy it. Now, if it was something of actual value, like some of my rare mangas, then we would have a problem. But a watch? Seriously? If my parents ever gave me something I could pawn like that, I would do it in a heartbeat. Free money. Well, who do you think is the jerk? Please let us know.
Should have given that watch to Reddit boy and I. We would have taken good care of it.
Am I the jerk for not promoting a longtime employee? Greetings. I've run into a recent dilemma with regards to my business. I, 57, male, own a private equity firm. We're no Warburg, but we're pretty well off. Some background. For the past 20 or so years, I've had a trusted second in command. Let's call him M, who recently retired, which created a vacancy in the company. Technically, the next highest ranking person is a senior executive. Let's call him J, male 51. He's been with the company for around 12 years, and I haven't had any issues with him prior to March of this year. The office had been experiencing financial instability, and Jay had been exploring openings in other companies. I didn't hold it against him, especially since he was so open and honest about the offers he received from other firms, many of which paid better than his current salary. After some negotiations, we were able to decide on a raise for him and get him to stay with the firm. Fast forward to 1 week ago, when M's retirement became official. Since March, circumstance had changed, largely due to the graduation of my son, B, who's 25. He had graduated from a very prestigious university and joined our firm soon after graduation. I had been seriously impressed by his work thus far, and that is where the problem arose. After careful contemplation, I decided to give the vacant position to B. This action was purely for the well-being of the company. Our success over the years has been largely through passing the company down from father to son, which is how I got my start in the firm. It was only right for me to continue this tradition and set up our future for years to come. When I revealed this to the rest of the company in our weekly meeting, the announcement went smoothly. Everyone took the news well and congratulated B. However, I could tell Jay was upset by the news, even though he was trying to hide it. My suspicions were confirmed when, after the meeting, he told me he felt betrayed and shocked by what he called the sudden promotion of B. The promotion was anything but sudden in my eyes, as I felt B had earned it. Though he didn't say it outright, Jay told me that he felt he was owed the promotion, especially after I guaranteed the spot to him in March. While I did mention the possibility of mobility in the company, I feel like this is disingenuous on his part, as he is twisting my words to make it seem like I'm breaking some imaginary promise. I can understand where he's coming from, but this is simply not the way to go about it. He said I was being underhanded by lying to him about his promotion. I've asked for the opinion of the other executives, all of whom agreed with me that I was not being unreasonable. If anything, I'm more confident in my decision after this meeting with Jay. I was already suspicious of his actions in March, but I never brought it up out of respect for his time spent with the firm. But now, I feel as if he violated that respect by trivializing my son's accomplishments and accusing me of being a liar. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. There's no way a 25-year-old has the experience and institutional knowledge of an older person who has been with the firm for years. And of course everyone is congratulating your son. They want to keep their jobs. Same with the executives agreeing with you about Jay. That job should have gone to a senior executive. You're the jerk. If Jay is the third highest ranking employee and you are the first, then how else was he supposed to interpret your suggestion of mobility in the company, other than that he would potentially replace the second ranked employee? It sounds like Jay was honest and upfront with you when he was looking for other jobs, and you said what he wanted to hear to get him to stay, and now you're trying to gaslight him into believing you didn't. Not the jerk. My father pretty much did the same thing when he hired me as COO of his company back in 1995. I was just 26 at the time. Sure, there were others who were better qualified than I was, but my father chose me because he trusted me long term. I recently lost my father, but he never regretted giving me that position. I 10x'd our growth, and we went on to sell the company for $900 million. If he had hired anybody else for that position, I guarantee you they would not have been as dedicated as I was. For over 20 years, every aspect of my life revolved around that company. It cost me my marriage, a drinking problem, and 2 heart attacks. But in the end, it was all worth it to see that smile on Dad's face. I miss my old man. Can't have white rope lights to celebrate Christmas? Okay, get ready for the color explosion. About 20 years ago, my wife and I had just gotten married, and we rented a condo where all the windows and sliding doors faced the parking area. My wife, to celebrate our first Christmas as a married couple, put a white rope light on the railing on our 2-foot grilling area. It was a nice little gesture. That night, we went out to dinner, and when we came home, found a letter under the door. The letter read, "All holiday lights must be removed immediately from the exterior portion of the condo. Christmas or other religious lighting is against HOA policy, and failure to remove can result in fines and other legal actions." My wife felt horrible, and I couldn't believe it. The owner of the condo had left a copy of the HOA regulations, and I found a nice little loophole. Apparently, they could regulate lights on the exterior balcony and grilling area, but not lights inside the condo. Game on. I took my wife immediately to the big box hardware store and picked up 2 fake Christmas trees, about 2,000 colored lights, a light ball, and whatever holiday decorations I could find. Our condo had 3 windows and the sliding glass door. I filled up each one of those windows with lights, crisscrossing around the inside of the perimeter of the window, and one had the lead ball hanging in the center. The sliding door had the Christmas tree in full view, completely covered in lights and ornaments. Also, the sliding doors were full of Christmas lights. My electric bill must have tripled. When you came into the parking lot of the condo complex, you saw a beacon of light, full of Christmas spirit. You probably could see the condo from orbit, and nothing could be said by the HOA snitch. Apparently, at the next board meeting, a proposed rule change was brought up to limit the amount of holiday lighting being shown through windows. It was quietly pointed out by another HOA board member that was an attorney that you probably could not regulate activities inside a person's dwelling. I moved out before next year, but I never received another notice.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.